Welcome to Fiction Audiobooks. If you enjoy the content, like and subscribing would be greatly appreciated. If you have any recommendations for novels, comment below.
Please join my Patreon at https://www.patreon.com/fictionaudiobook.
Chapter 63, Decisions Made. What? How? Why? Madara didn't even know where to start his questions, which made the girls chuckle in response. Well. Long story short, we went to fight in Ba Sing Se years ago. We lost some sisters but ended up victorious, but... Kira's eyes became a bit sad. In the end, we all judged that we did our part, and decided to leave it to the next generation of Kyoshi warriors. Suki has been doing great from what I've heard. The mature woman chuckled at the memory of that little bratty girl becoming a fierce Kyoshi leader like herself in the past. We decided to retire in Ba Sing Se, and we did for a while. She sighed, but Ba Sing Se, it's not the place we expected it to be. Her eyes narrowed and a shadow was cast over her face. We would have just accepted it and lived with it, but then we received a generous offer from Lao Bifong a month ago. Now imagine my surprise in knowing that the little brat Madara Uchiha became one of the most feared men in the world. The most feared men. Madara couldn't help but to correct her with a smirk. Oh. But what about the Avatar? She asked with a smirk of her own. Avatar who? Madara just shrugged. The Kyoshi warriors and former Bifong guards couldn't help but laugh. Madara was right. If what they heard was right, the current Avatar is still a kid who is more worried about having fun than fighting for balance. Madara on the other hand. Who needs the Avatar anyway? Said one of the guards jokingly, making the others chuckle and agree. Even Madara chuckled, relieving a bit of his grief and sadness. I wish I could offer you a warm welcome, with a festival and feast, but as you can see, things over here aren't in a festive mood. It's complicated. I'm sure Lao informed you all considering what he wrote to me. Yes, he did, Gon replied. He was aware of the attack and sent us as a support unit for you, but it seems we arrived late. Gon's shoulders dropped with a bit of melancholy. They could feel and see the atmosphere of this place. Death. If they arrived a day earlier. Many of the guards and even the Kyoshi warriors narrowed their eyes at that thought. How many could have been saved? I can't believe that Lao would send you all to help me, especially after the whole thing with Toph. Madara was still surprised about it. He considers you a friend. He gave you that sirship. How hard is it to offer a regular ship and some foot soldiers like ourselves? You know about the airship? Madara's eyes went wide. Well. It was hidden for years, but eventually came to light. Won't that bring trouble to Lao? Shrugging, the soldier just replied, he is wealthy enough to not have to worry about that kind of stuff. The person who sold it to him is toasted though. I am talking about his wife. Oh. Yes, she tore him a new hole. Oof. Well, he kinda deserve it. The soldiers all laughed. Doing the math, Lei approached Madara saying, Mr. Uchiha, it seems that Lao sent us around 100 soldiers and 5 Kyoshi warriors. Lei, is that you? Shouted Gon while hugging the local Jackie-chan. Hey Gon. Glad to see you alive and kickin'. You fucker, you haven't aged a day. Gon stared at this man that was clearly older than him, but looked now that they were the same age. Lei chuckled. As the day went by, the new soldiers helped with the work needed to repair the affected zone. They didn't even ask for instructions from Madara, and went directly to the workers and builders responsible for the repairs. Madara trained them to be independent and a self-sufficient group, which means they grew accustomed to have the initiative to act as they saw fit instead of waiting for orders that may come with a pricey delay. He couldn't help but chuckle at the irony of it all. He trained the Kyoshi just to get some startup help in this world, and trained the Bifong soldiers just because he was paid to do so. Nothing was done for selflessness. Every act had a purpose, but they said that no good deed goes unpunished, but Madara couldn't help but stare at the large number of men working together. While enjoying his kizaru from his balcony, a smile appeared on his lips as he watched his proud little kingdom. The resort won't sleep tonight. Everyone is working, and the next day, not a single soul complained about it. The next day started with a very complicated morning. He talked with all the people that wished to leave his lands and simply approved, and even gave them some supplies for their journey south towards Hotari, a Fire Nation town that the Avatar and his group just left a few days prior after enjoying the Fire Day festival. It was the closest safe colony for them, and the road wasn't dangerous. It was just a long walk, a few days long walk. One would ask, why would Madara help people wanting to leave his lands, and the reason is pretty simple. First, Madara, kinda, owned Hotari and many other colonies, not directly but at this point, his influence on the colonies were so strong that most governors reported to him and were under his wallet. Second, he used this as an opportunity to send a few loyal men disguised as former workers to go towards other colonies and keep an eye on their rulers. He can't afford to have turncoats at this point. After seeing them off, Madara went straight to the funeral rites. He ditched completely the speech about the Fire Lord and his family, and all their glory and bullshit like that. he avoided anything related to the Fire Nation rulers and military as a whole, but kept certain Fire Nation customs since all his people are technically from the Fire Nation. The bodies were cremated, but instead of being covered in a Fire Nation flag while the fire engulfed them from below, it was a simple silky red cloth, no banner, no sigil, no brand. It respected their origin but didn't put them under their rule, and everyone understood the silent message. Madara wasn't happy, and Lei, Kalia, Nari and the employees weren't happy either. They were not dumb. No matter how much a mercenary band was bold, they would never attack a colony, even if it was under the request of the Earth King himself. To be so bold and directly attack the colony, they were either under a suicide attack, which is very unlikely because there would be no point, or they received the green light to act, kill, pillage and destroy from someone that gave them insurances. After that, Madara gathered the Kyoshi warriors and his new group of elite soldiers. "We have to leave again," Madara said with a somber tone. He had made his decision. Being a fence-sitter was never his thing, and he would rather try and fail than never try at all. His previous life was already filled with doubts and insecurities. In this life he wanted to change that. "Do you think it's wise, Madara?" asked Nari while sitting on her zabuton cushion. "The employees won't like it. They will consider you abandoning them in their mourning period. It goes against the conduct of a governor and you will be disrespecting their customs." The former Bifong guards and Kyoshi warriors didn't care much. It wasn't their customs, and honestly neither did his own team, but they knew how important it was for a leader to lead by example, especially in trying times. For a few seconds they could see reluctance in Madara's eyes, but it went away fairly quickly as he asserted himself. "If my intelligence is correct, a Fire Nation fleet should be heading towards the Northern Water Tribe as we speak." As he finished, Nari's, Lei's and even his own eyes went towards Kalia, who displayed a shocked and worried expression. "Boss, are you sure about that?" the pirate girl asked. "Yes, and they have the numbers and..." He narrowed his eyes and stared at Kalia. "They have knowledge of the two friends your people keep behind the palace." As if struck by lightning, Kalia instantly stood up. "Don't tell me they are planning to get rid of them. I would love to say that no one is that stupid, but I know of one admiral that actually is." Madara interrupted her with a somber tone. "And how will you deal with the aftermath?" asked Kira, the former Kyoshi leader. "If you do that, you will be dropping all pretenses with the Fire Nation, and from what I've seen and heard today, that's the only reason why they went through the cumbersome task to gather mercenaries instead of attacking directly." She wasn't knowledgeable of this place or the circumstances in details, but she was smart and cunning. One doesn't go to war, fight, kill and survive to tell the tale without learning a few things, and if there's one thing she knows it's how ruthless the Fire Nation was to their enemies. "She is right," Nari agreed. "If you do this, there will be no turning back. They will send their fleet here without second thoughts, and even if you kill most of them and keep killing, they won't stop until you are out of the game. You can't risk everything like this." Madara couldn't help but chuckling. "You are right." Everyone was quite relieved after hearing that, unfortunately. But there it is, there's always a but with Madara. As they looked at him, they saw his eyes turning red and glowing crimson, with 3 comma-shaped marks around his pupils. For the Kyoshi warriors and the elite guards it was a shock. They never heard of that kind of ability ever. How would they find out, if there's no witnesses left? "That. Are you planning on exterminating every single soldier that wears the Fire Nation armor?" Madara asked with a grin. "Why not? They wanted to exterminate my people. I shall erase theirs from existence." The room was silent for a few seconds, stares being shared and thoughts being formulated inside their heads. "How will you do it?" Kalia was the one to ask. She was from the Northern Water Tribe. No way in hell would she live to see it fall, regardless of what happened in the past. "Wrong question." Madara stood up and looked at his people. "How will we do it?" And to answer that, he looked up, drawing everyone's attention to the stormy skies, covered in dark clouds that threatened to drown the land under heavy rain. Ironically, it wasn't even noon yet. "The moon is on our side tonight, don't you think, Kalia?" It was decided then and there. Madara would take only 20 people with him. His whole team, Nari, Lei, Kalia, the 5 Kyoshi warriors under the leadership of Nari, and Gon would lead a 10-man team on their assault. She was new to this place, so Madara never considered her as an aide in this battle, nor did he share with her anything related to what happened. The girl only knew that mercenaries were exterminated for being too greedy and attacked the Dragon Lord's land. "The plans are set, we leave in 1 hour under the cover of the storm, and Jackie," concluded Madara while standing up together with everyone else. "Yes, Mr. Uchiha. Bring me my armor." Chapter 64, Red Moon Rises. Tonight, we celebrate the arrival of our brother and sister from the Southern Tribe. And they have brought with them someone very special, someone whom many of us believe to have disappeared from the world until now. "The Avatar," said a stern-looking middle-aged man with bright blue eyes, typical of the Water Tribes, dark brown hair tied and stylized in a tribal way and wearing long blue robes with white fur around his collar. After a loud round of applause and cheers he continues. "We also celebrate my daughter's 16th birthday. Princess Yu is now of marrying age, he concluded while gesturing to a white-haired young woman. Thank you, father. May the great ocean and moon spirits watch over us during these troubled times. Yu said with a calm and composed expression. Giving a curt nod to his daughter, the chief then gestured to two young men led by another stern old man, this one with white hair, who was standing by. Now, Master Paku and his students will perform. As Paku and his two students bent significant blobs of water, they captivated Aang and Katara. They merged the three blobs into one stream, bending it around each other. While Aang and Katara were enamored by the classy, waterbending techniques, Sokka was enamored by something, or someone, else. Hi there. Sokka. Southern Water Tribe. Said the teen, giving his typical grin and raising an eyebrow. Very nice to meet you. Answered Yu, smiling and bowing slightly. The two of them shared an awkward silence for a moment until nervously Sokka decided to take the lead in their conversation. So, you're a princess. You know. Back in my tribe I'm kind of like a prince myself. The poor Sodsras would work, possibly, if his sister wasn't nearby to counter it. Ha. Katara interrupted, Prince of what, exactly? A lot of things. Sokka shouted in exasperation. Can't his sister work for his benefit once in her life? Do you mind? I'm trying to have a conversation here. My apologies, Prince Sokka. Katara responded, with very obvious sarcasm. As Sokka tried and failed to level up his riz and speech skill tree to score a northern princess while being sabotaged by his own sister, Chief Arnuk and Paku were having a talk. Master Paku, meet your newest student, the Avatar, Arnuk said, with Aang bowing to the master. Just because you're destined to save the world, don't expect any special treatment, Paku said. His memory of Madara and Kalia were still vivid in his mind, as well as Madara's illusion that made him have nightmares for weeks. Comparing him, the Avatar feels unpolished, and that's being polite. The boy in front of him didn't seem to have what it takes to end the war. Hell, he was more excited about the sight of the city and the food than talking to him, but again, he had been wrong before. My friend and I can't wait to start training with you. After we relax for a couple of days. Replied the Avatar with a big grin. A couple of days, he says. The old master frowned. If you want to relax, then I suggest visiting a tropical island. If not, I'll see you both at sunrise. Good night. The next day at dawn, Aang and Katara finally made it to the place where Chief Arnuk told the Avatar to meet Paku. I've waited for this my whole life, said Katara excitedly. I finally get to learn from a real waterbending master. Aang nodded with his huge toothy smile as they turned to Paku, who was busy bending a stream of water. Good morning, Master Paku. The old man dropped the water and spoke in an annoyed tone. No, please, march right in. I'm not concentrating or anything. This is my friend. Katara. The one I told you about. I'm sorry. I think there's been a misunderstanding. You didn't tell me your friend was a girl. In our tribe, it is forbidden for women to learn waterbending. Answered Paku. Angrily Katara shouted, what do you mean you won't teach me? I didn't travel across the entire world so you could tell me no. Paku stared at her for a second, childish and entitled. Just because she made her way up here, she believes she has the right to demand my knowledge and skills, a far cry from you, Kalia. No, he said with a bored tone. But there must be other female waterbenders in your tribe, said Katara. Here, the women learn from Yagoda to use their waterbending to heal. I'm sure she would be happy to take you as her student, despite your bad attitude. I don't want to heal, I want to fight. I can see that. But our tribe has customs, rules. Well, your rules stink. Aang was also angry. Yeah, they're not fair. If you won't teach Katara then. Paku could only stare at the bald boy with a bit of disappointment. Then what? Then I won't learn from you, the young airbender shouted, as if it was the ultimate threat. Foolish boy, at least that firebender had the guts to stare me in the eye and make me feel fear. Kalia at least had the guts to challenge me to prove her point. These two are just disappointing. Well, have fun teaching yourself then. I'm sure you'll do a great job. Wait. Aang didn't mean that. Shouted the Southern Water Tribe girl right before running towards the fuming Avatar that was already leaving. To think that the girl is less of a fool than the Avatar, how disappointing indeed. Approaching the bald boy, Katara grabbed his shoulders. You can't risk your training from me. You have to learn from Master Paku. Even if he is a big jerk. She said the final part while stealing glances at the old master. It's not that he didn't notice or hear it, he simply didn't care. Aang tried to argue, but Katara stared at him as a mother would stare at her misbehaving child, which for some reason made Aang agree with her point of view real quick. As Aang approached back towards the old master, he was blasted away with a stream of water, making him sprawl on the icy floor of the training platform. Why are you laying down already? We barely started. Hours passed. Aang was beaten a lot, Sokka was embarrassed a lot, and Katara learned a lot. healing was as bad as she thought and she could see how useful it could be to the team, but she still wanted to fight, the necklace background and also Kana, or, as many knew her as, Gran. Aang then decided to do a more clandestine move that night after the gang talked about their day. He went out of his way to try to teach Katara what Pakku taught him, which didn't end well for the Avatar boy, which led to the current events outside of the main palace of Agna Kele. Are you crazy, Katara? You're not going to win this fight, said Sokka worriedly. I don't care, responded the fuming girl while removing her coat. You don't have to do this for me. I can find another teacher, said Aang, feeling guilty. I'm not doing it for you. Someone needs to slap some sense into that guy, Katara said as she saw Pakku coming down from the palace. So, you decided to show up. But contrary to her expectations, the old man simply walked away. Aren't you going to fight? The angry Katara asked. Go back to the healing huts with the other women where you belong. Before he could continue talking, whips of water were sent towards him, to which he dodged easily. I see. Fine. You want to learn to fight so bad? Study closely then. The old master bent 2 streams of water from nearby pools and sent them both at a charging Katara. The impact made the girl fall back while the old master joined the 2 streams together, encircling both Katara and himself in a forceful ring of water. Don't worry, I'm not going to hurt you. The fight continued with Katara trying every trick she learned on her way here. She used every trick she managed to learn from the scroll as well, but all of that merely made the old Pakku raise an eyebrow and continue blasting her with water until she was trapped. The curtains closed as Team Avatar finally learned about Pakku and Kanna's engagement, and after a long drawn-out drama, Pakku finally decided to accept the girl as his student. Perhaps you were right all along, Kalia, thought the old man as he walked back to his residence. For the next few days, both Aang and Katara joined Pakku at the training grounds. Sokka tried to woo you, which would have worked easily before she met Madara. Did she have feelings for Madara? No. Not quite, but the point is, the fact that Madara supplied her with the excitement she didn't know she needed from the outside world, which would make Sokka's endeavor significantly more challenging since he wasn't the first outsider that she met. To be fair, most of Madara's stories about the outside world were a bit more exciting than Sokka's, with the one exception being the Fire Nation Avatar Temple, but even that was just on par with Madara's tales. The poor guy didn't even have a chance in that. What could Sokka possibly talk about that would be more exciting than a gigantic hidden library that existed since the dawn of humanity, guided by an equally old and wise owl spirit? To her, that values spirits and worshipped them as divines. Nothing. Not that Sokka didn't have a chance. It was just that different from canon, he wasn't meeting sheltered and easily impressionable girls. Both Suki and Yu had their horizons expanded before meeting him, so now he had to do more than just being charming and funny. He had to be impressive, which he wasn't yet, but who knows about in the future. The fun days came to an end abruptly though, once Sokka spotted the soot, also known as black snow, that was known to precede a Fire Nation attack. He knew the time had come. The Fire Nation was there, and this time he felt it would be war. To make things even worse for Sokka, he also met his rival in romance, a tall handsome young warrior named Han, but that drama was short-lived. No drama needed while having the Northern Water Tribe be capital sieged by fireballs after all. The attack was easily put on hold due to the full moon shining brightly in the sky, which gave Team Avatar the time needed to parley with Tue and La at the Spirit Oasis. Unfortunately for them, Zuko managed to steal the Avatar away. On the streets of Agna Kele, the battle was bloody, things that the TV series didn't show, such as the waterbenders using sharp ice to cut and pierce or simply drowning Fire Nation soldiers with their bending, while the firebenders would burn people on their path mercilessly. With people dying left and right on both sides, the Fire Nation was being pushed back. The full moon was no joke and doubled the waterbenders' output. Although extremely mild when compared to the Sozin's Comet enhancement, one must not forget the high quantity of waterbenders and the home advantage. Everything in Agna Kele was made of ice, everything was a weapon under their disposal here. The fighting was getting more and more chaotic and bloody from both sides until suddenly, the moon turned red. I am a legend now, a middle-aged man with sideburns grinned pridefully while holding a bag above a small pond, surrounded by lush green vegetation. The Fire Nation will, for generations, tell stories about the great Zhao, who darkened the moon. They will call me, Zhao the Conqueror, Zhao the Moon Slayer, Zhao the Invincible. He shouts in excitement, finally. Finally, he achieved something great after so many defeats over the years. While the Admiral was daydreaming about the fame and glory he would earn under his name, Team Avatar approached them and the Fire Nation soldiers behind Zhao positioned themselves to fight. Don't, said Aang while lifting his arms in a surrendering motion. One could see him and Sokka bruised, the southern young man was even limping. If it wasn't for the full moon helping Katara, they would have been captured by Zuko then and there. Even Katara was breathing hard with many scorched marks on her tunic. It's my destiny to destroy the moon and the water tribe, said the Admiral in glee. Destroying the moon won't hurt just the water tribe. It will hurt everyone, including you. Without the moon, everything would fall out of balance. You have no idea what kind of chaos that would unleash on the world. Aang tried his best. He is right, Zhao, an old yet stern voice came from the side. General Iroh, why am I not surprised to discover your treachery? Zhao responded while looking towards the hooded newcomer. I'm no traitor, Zhao. The Fire Nation needs the moon too, we all depend on the balance. Said the old general with a serious expression, taking his firebending stance. Whatever you do to that spirit, I'll unleash on you tenfold. Let it go. Now. Zhao even recoiled a bit in fear while looking at Iroh. He never saw the old general this serious before. That look in Iroh's eyes was telling him that the old general would aim for the kill the moment he attacked the spirit. The admiral's hands trembled, he was frustrated. Everything seemed to be working against him. He failed his mission in the swamp several years ago, he failed to capture the Avatar with the best archers in the world, he failed to capture the prince to gain the Fire Lord's favor. Even when he got promoted, the one spark of victory he had in the last decade of his life, he didn't feel like he achieved anything, no. He wanted to show that he was superior, he was worthy. His name should be a legend. I will show them all. The slight pause already showed a difference from canon. Zhao didn't crouch down to release the spirit, no. Under the red moonlight, time seemed to slow down as his right hand ignited in flames, aiming for the bag held by his left hand. Aang, Katara, Yu, Iroh, Sokka, everyone's eyes went wide at the sheer craziness of Zhao's move. They all wanted to move and stop it, but it was too sudden. Even Iroh, who was somewhat prepared, knew that even if he blasted his fire towards Zhao now it would be too late. They could only watch Zhao's crazy smile in horror, as the admiral's flames slowly drew closer to the moon spirit. As the flames drew closer, a black shadow seemed to rush in front of Zhao, inches before the flames consumed the almighty spirit fish. A loud clank sound echoed throughout the oasis, drawing everyone's attention to the weirdly shaped fan, upside down and halfway sunk into the earth, leaving a trail on the pristine grass, while a man with a wild, long black hair, black clothes underneath crimson armor and red eyes that seemed to reflect the red moon above stood on top of the fan, with one foot on top of the tip of the handle while the other was on the lower part of the fan, in a Sasori-style stance. On his right hand a bloodied scythe could be seen, while his left hand held the bag carrying the moon spirit. And a severed arm. It's been a while. Little Zhao, we finally meet again. What followed was a scream of pain and agony. Chapter 65, Distress. The music I was listening while writing this was Naruto Shippuden OST, Emergence of Talents, one of my all-time favorites, so I totally recommend. Holding a bloody severed arm, Madara kept staring at Zhao straight in the eyes. Part of him was feeling the thrill of revenge, while the other was incredibly disappointed. The foe of years past is a threat no more. One of the firebender soldiers recovered faster than the others and charged towards Madara, who didn't even bat an eye and just said, "Jackie." From above, a man with long hair tied into a low ponytail appeared, doing an axe kick that instantly hit the back of the neck of the poor soldier. A loud crack sound could be heard as the soldier fell on the floor, gone. He scanned the scared faces of everyone in the vicinity, as a loud sound came from above. Looking up, everyone saw a large black-colored airship hovering dangerously close to the city's buildings, drifting through the air while making the hair and clothes of everyone fly up with the wind that the turbines generated. Tossing the scythe on the ground, with his long mane flowing wildly with the wind, Madara turned to the nearby living Fire Nation soldier. He appeared in front of the poor fella like a ghost and simply pointed the index finger of his free hand against the chest area of the soldier's armor, then spoke softly with an emotionless tone. "Since you are all here lined up properly, let me test my newest move." Lightning crackled around his hand as he took a soft breath and stared deep into the soldier's eyes. Chain lightning. Static instantly built up as the crackling of lightning used the poor soldier to suddenly jump from him towards the next one, then the next one, and then the one after that. With uncanny and inhuman control, the lightning avoided any friendly fire and targeted only the 8 standing soldiers that accompanied Zhao to this place. Madara also made sure to avoid Zhao with this killer move. Team Avatar and you were horrified to see a small team of elite firebenders instantly drop to the ground, spasming, after a single second. Iroh on the other hand was impressed. He instantly guessed how Madara managed to do such a move, using each target as a lightning rod guiding the lightning through their hearts and then using their own chi to supply the jump to the next target. In his eyes, Madara's creativity was on par with his own, but instead waterbending as a base to create a technique, Madara decided to employ earthbending instead, turning anyone in the vicinity as a possible lightning generator. What shocked him, though, was the control. It's not humanly possible to see chi or how it moved, so how did Madara do it? He could only guess that it was related to those red eyes. It was called lightning generation instead of lightning bending for a reason. One can't bend lightning, it's too wild and dangerous, yet, somehow, Madara did it. What no one noticed is that every time the lightning moved, the finger touching the first soldier's chest moved by a millimeter, either up, down, sideways or even twisting the angle a little bit, all possible because of the ultimate cheat called Sharingan. Not long after that another person dropped from above, right before the airship drifted into the air and moved towards the wall. This time a tall, strong, and voluptuous woman with clear water tribe traits landed nearby. Sokka could only let out a loud gulp sound as he stared at Kalia's eyes. Yeah. 100%. Yu, who was right beside him, narrowed her eyes towards the self-proclaimed Southern Water Tribe prince, and sneered. After everyone was downed and Zhao was still clutching his bloody stump, Madara raised the bag in his other hand. It seems that you owe me big time now. Tue. He couldn't help but grin. There was nothing more gratifying than a well-thought-out and perfectly executed plan. He could feel the fish's movements inside the bag becoming more calm and less chaotic, as if she accepted it. Good. As the tall hot woman approached Madara, he extended his hand, handing her the bag attached to the severed arm. You take care of it, Kalia. Jackie, defend the perimeter around the oasis. I don't want a single Fire Nation soldier in here. Kalia, after you are done with Tue, you join me on the streets. We have a battle to win. Under the red moonlight, Madara moved his hand in a fast motion, launching a kunai towards his war fan. And with a single pull, as if by magic, the huge fan yoinks itself from the ground and flies towards Madara's stretched hand. General Iroh, I wish our meeting would have been during more fortunate circumstances. Iroh, who was already relieved that someone managed to stop Zhao before he erased the moon, couldn't help but smile. Ah, such circumstances seem to disagree with my old age. I wonder if we could meet again at your resort for some good tea, to wash away the sourness of this current encounter. Contrary to his expectations, however, Madara frowned a bit, before forcing a smile. Give us a few weeks. Let's just say that a lot happened. Iroh then remembered the firestorm that happened while they were on their way here, and he simply nodded while saying, I see. Now, said Madara while turning his head towards the amputee admiral. I think we have some unfinished business, right? Admiral. As he was walking towards his target, the Avatar finally managed to react. Wait! Shouted the boy. Madara merely glanced at him as he finally stood in front of Zhao. We shall talk later, Avatar. Katara, who was the only one not really physically beaten, took initiative to ask. Are you friend or enemy? She never in her life saw anyone manipulating lightning. That single chain lightning scared her shitless butt. Not only that, this man was scary. He severed someone's arm without blinking. To someone like her, he was cold-blooded, and those abnormal red eyes only made things worse. Ignoring the girl, Madara simply grabbed Zhao by his throat, like a chicken, and suddenly jumped several feet in the air while using firebending on his feet to launch himself up. After Madara left, the moon slowly went back to normal. Turning around, the group saw Kalia gently releasing the white koi fish into the pond. With the red tint of the moon finally lifted, Team Avatar could finally see the new arrivals properly. So. Hello. Said Aang with an awkward smile towards the newcomers. His first impressions were mixed. Madara scared him shitless, Kalia gave him a neutral feeling, and Lei gave him a friendly, welcoming vibe. It was weird for the bald boy. Lei, staring at the Avatar, couldn't help but raise an eyebrow. Oh. So, you are the Avatar, huh? Well, it's a pleasure to meet you. He said while giving a respectful bow. This little one is the Avatar. Kalia, after releasing Tue, approached Lei and the gang. Ahem. Wasting no time, Sokka took charge. Who are you people? What are you doing here? He said while moving slightly between them and you. I wish to know that as well, added Katara with narrowed eyes. She didn't like being ignored by Madara one bit. Both Kalia and Lei stared at one another, each with a raised eyebrow. What kind of bullshit have these kids been fed until now to believe that they are entitled to demand answers? But before they could tell Team Avatar how far up their rectum they could shove their interrogation, you came in clutch. Kalia. She shouted in excitement, which earned her a smirk from the voluptuous waterbender. Look at that. The little princess grew up fine indeed. The white hair seems to fit you, Kalia said as she moved closer to the younger northerner girl. Do you know each other? Asked Aang, completely clueless. He still hadn't registered everything that happened. Wait a minute, you said Kalia. Katara couldn't help herself here. Who's Kalia? Asked a confused Sokka. Listen. It's been a long trip here with a lot of ups, downs and more downs. Cut the guy some slack, okay? Really? You don't remember? She made the waterbender scroll. Said Katara with an annoyed tone as she stared daggers at her brother, who simply shrugged and ignored the information. Yes. Kalia raised an eyebrow. I have your scroll. Said Katara a bit embarrassed. Oh. Well, ye are lucky, I guess. Kalia simply shrugged, not much differently from Sokka's behavior. Turning towards Lei, she added, Jackie, you will stay here with the kids, right? Then I'll be going. Gotta remove some Fire Nation stains from me homeland. After that, she ran towards the water surrounding the oasis, and after turning the water into a small maelstrom, she launched herself up, following Madara's speed. An awkward silence remained. So, have you ever tried to ride an otter penguin? Aang could only be Aang. And poor Jackie could only raise an eyebrow as he stared at the weird avatar boy in front of him. What? No, nothing, forget about it. Ah, Mr. Lei, it's been a while. How have you been? An old, but quite happy voice came from the side, but said voice made Team Avatar react, quickly assuming defensive stances, ready for a fight. Ah. Mr. Iroh, said Lei with a huge smile as he turned towards the old general. It's been a while, sadly some things happened, but luckily we arrived in time. Wait. So, you two are on the same side? Shouted Sokka, already pulling out his boomerang, ready to fight. Sigh, both Lei and Iroh couldn't help but sigh, and even had the same thought. Kids. At the same time, on top of the walls of Agna Kele, over 100 feet above the city, overseeing the ice-cold sea of the northern pole and enjoying the sight of dozens of Fire Nation warships, two people stood. One with his arms crossed in front of his crimson armor, while the other on his knees, with an expression of pain as what was left of his right arm kept bleeding. You will regret this. Ghost, said the kneeling man. I disagree, answered the armored young man with an emotionless tone. Till this day he still hadn't recovered from what happened in the resort. He was doing his damn best to not go on a wild slaughter, destroying Agna Kele from the map. Luckily Pakku was busy somewhere and didn't cross paths with him. The Fire Nation will destroy everything you have. You are done, said the admiral with spite and pain. Madara said only that, while he kept staring at the warships on the horizon. What? What are you staring at? Afraid of our mighty navy? Was all that Madara said, again, with the same neutral and bored tone. Keep watching. Watching what? Before the admiral could properly ask, he could see the 5 huge flagships as well as another 10 big ships turning around one after the other, slowly retreating from the battlefield, leaving only the small ones behind. Doesn't seem a lot. Well, Zhao did lose a lot of ships due to Madara's firestorm several days ago, not only that Aang also did his best to destroy all closest ships with his bending before Madara got here. What? What are they doing? That's my flagship. As the admiral kept shouting in anger for minutes on end, his strength leaving him by the second, he could barely see straight as the blood loss started hitting him hard. One would think that he could cauterize the wound with his fire bending, but that's no flesh wound, it's a freaking severed limb. Not only that, the blood loss was taking its toll. Any minute now, said Madara. Zhao didn't even have enough energy to ask any more, he could only stare as the remaining ships went boom. You know, Zhao, that day that I exploded your ship on the Fire Nation blockade gave me many insights into how fragile your ships really are. Why you didn't think you were simply so unlucky that lightning decided to aim straight towards your ship, right? No. It was me, and I've got to say, I have pretty good aim, don't you agree? Grabbing Zhao by the collar of his armor, Madara brought him to the edge of the wall, holding him dangling from the edge. You almost had me back then, you know. If you hadn't run away like a coward, you could have had me killed. Now it's payback time, and I leave no loose ends, but I appreciate the ships you donated to me. I will take care of them, don't worry. Zhao could only watch in horror and resignation as Madara let go of his armor. He could feel the wind blowing against his back as he fell from over 100 feet towards the frosty northern sea. In his field of vision, he could see both Madara and the edge of the wall getting farther and farther away, yet those inhuman red eyes were always staring at him, like a hawk, no, like a bloodthirsty predator, until the very end. There was no more pain in his severed arm, there was no more fear of Madara, there was no more respect towards the Fire Lord, and there was no more cruelty towards Zuko. During his final moments all that Zhao could feel was distress. Chapter 66, The Morning After. The red tint of the sun finally poked through the horizon, illuminating the pristine white snow dunes outside of the capital of Agna Kele. The place being surrounded by frosty mountains was a picturesque image of nature unblemished by humanity. In between the endless waves of snow that covered the equally endless plains of the North Pole, a single stout old man wearing dark red robes with a fire sigil on his chest could be seen walking, leaving a soft trail of footsteps behind. Looking around, the old man spotted some smoke nearby, and couldn't help but sigh in relief before moving towards the one single touch of humanity since he left the northern capital. You took your time, uncle, said a tired young man wearing white clothes with one scorched eye, while resting his back against a snow-covered tree. I'm more surprised that you, Prince Zuko, are not trying to capture the Avatar at this moment, said the old man with a gentle smile on his wrinkled face. I'm tired. was all that Zuko could say before his eyelids got too heavy for him to endure. Then you should rest. The gentle general replied as he kneeled beside his nephew and covered him with his robes. A man needs his rest. At the same time, in Agna Kele, the aftermath of the siege could still be felt. It's been hours since it ended, but one could easily spot destroyed buildings, bloodstains, and if too close to the wall, corpses, quite a few of them, both friend and foe. There was no sleep for the northerners tonight, only grief for some and relief for many. While a few of them felt both simultaneously, such as Chief Arnook, who went pale after discovering the reason why the moon turned red during the previous night. To think that I would be here, thanking a firebender for the safety of not only our nation but also the safety of the natural balance of this world. The middle-aged chief said while looking at Madara's black eyes. It shocked him dearly when he saw it. I wouldn't allow my companion to live with the burden of her homeland's destruction just because of my personal bias, replied Madara with a neutral but rather respectful tone. Both of them were sitting on one of the palace's balconies, observing the city being rebuilt while having a one-on-one talk. We appreciate your help. Regardless of my own personal bias, said the chief with a wry chuckle in response, I honestly thought that the Avatar alone would be enough to save us from destruction. He concluded with a rather depressed tone. Madara couldn't help but shake his head. The Avatar is a boy still wet behind his ears, but I believe that he will rise to the challenge when needed. Without a doubt he would have protected your city, but I also believe he is still too green to achieve that without significant losses. To be honest with you, the night I became chief, I dreamed about our city being covered in flames under a moonless sky. Said the chief with some distress in his voice. In the same dream I saw my own daughter leaving us, forever embracing a long sleep. Turning his head towards Madara, the chief continued, to be honest, when you used that illusion, said Madara. Yes. Illusion, on us during the council meeting, I thought you were the reason for said fate. We are spiritually attuned people, and I always took that dream as a vision of sorts, of an inevitable future. Chuckling at the old chief, Madara responded, the only inevitability is that we all die one day, the rich, the poor, the strong and the weak, but how we die is not up to fate and can always be changed. I never liked the idea of prophecies, they make me feel like my life isn't my own. Now it was Arnook's turn to chuckle. Yes, I agree with you on that. I am glad that I didn't lose my daughter last night. I wouldn't even consider it a victory if I did. Your daughter is strong, and she is talented as well. She was blessed by the moon spirit, and if properly trained, she could become the strongest waterbender in the world. Madara then coughed and leaned towards Arnook. Don't tell Kalia that I said that. The middle-aged chief couldn't help but burst into a joyous laugh. Ha 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 ha. Even Madara couldn't keep his stoic face for long and started chuckling as well. After calming down from the laugh, the chief said, unfortunately, our rules suck, said Madara, instantly. Arnook raised an eyebrow. You don't have much respect for culture, do you? He wasn't angry. He knew Madara disliked their views. He was with Kalia after all. He would have been surprised if Madara actually agreed with them. You are not the only ones with stupid culture, Madara said. Oh. The Kyoshi Island, we've been there, and they are the polar opposite of you. They have one of the best martial arts that they train in, but they only teach women. Men are forbidden from learning it. Really? They must really respect Avatar Kyoshi. Madara just shrugged. Doesn't matter, they are a tiny island nation that barely survives on fishing. They have no allies and they are fully dependent on a dozen or so Kyoshi warriors, the females who learned how to fight, to defend themselves. They are easy prey because they ignore the potential of men. We are stronger than that. We have hundreds of waterbenders and many masters among our ranks. Arnook tried to argue. Yet none of that would have mattered if neither me or the Avatar were here, and you know it. Madara couldn't help but sigh, those old people following their old ways. Listen, I don't expect you to change anything because I said this or that, but understand this, we are living during one of the biggest recorded wars ever, 100 years. Do you really want your people to suffer just because of old traditions? That's up to you. I am not here to tell you how to rule your nation. Last night. That was just part of the Navy under one admiral. What if the Fire Lord really sets his eyes on you and your people? Do you think he will spare the women just because they don't fight? I remember the Southern Water Tribe having to deal with something similar in the past. That managed to shut Arnook up really fast. The old chief couldn't even think of a comeback. Well, you think about my words, I need to get back to my lands. Said Madara as he stood up, ready to walk inside to call for his team. So soon? Arnook raised an eyebrow. At least stay for a while. Let us compensate for our, rather poor, reception from last time you visited. Chuckling, Madara replied, no need. I know how deep the hatred towards the Fire Nation runs. Honestly, I don't even blame you all for it. It's just that I also have my responsibilities and I left everything behind to come help your people. I am not a homeless kid wandering the world anymore. I have to take care of my people now. Oh, the woes of growing up. Said Arnook with a smirk while shaking his head. Well. Madara shrugged as he spotted Kalia in the courtyard beating the shit out of both Aang and Katara in a waterbending lesson. his eyes lingered on certain places of her body before he smirked, "It's not that bad." As noon approached, Kalia finally decided to stop the beating. "I mean teaching. Ye kids can't take even that. Ye need to double your training," she said while placing her hands on her hips, displaying a savage smirk. Please, just a minute." The poor bald boy, sprawled on the icy floor like a starfish, was having a tough time. He was never a big physical guy, his stamina was rather dreadful. That wasn't in the scroll," said an equally beaten Katara, sitting down while leaning back on the fountain behind her. "Of course not. That's only the novice moves. Ye think I would have made an advanced bending scroll and left it for grabs? Are ye an idiot or something?" Kalia couldn't understand the lines of thoughts of these kids. Did they expect everything to be easy in life? At a distance, observing the training, stood Yu. While holding something to her chest with both hands, the white-haired northern princess couldn't help but express her desire to be out there, on the training field, learning how to fight as well. Last night was a wake-up call for her. If she was strong, if she was skilled, she wouldn't need someone else to come and save the day. No. She could do it herself. She was blessed by the moon spirit, but when the moon spirit needed her the most, where was she? Hiding behind the avatar, powerless and scared. Never again. As she stood there, sharpening her resolve, ready to change her life, she noticed two people approaching the training yard. One was tall and handsome with long hair tied into a ponytail, wearing traditional Earth Kingdom robes in black, with green and gold accents, carrying a big metal barrel on his shoulder with a single arm around it while smiling as he walked, as if the weight wasn't a big deal. Following him was someone that made her frown a little bit. "Sokka. So, you learned how to fight from Madara as well?" asked the hyper Sokka while following Lei around like a baby duckling following his mama duck. "Against my will, but yes. I did, but now I am grateful for it," answered the ever-polite Lei, with a smile. "Do you know if Madara offers a, quick course? For someone like me?" Raising an eyebrow, Lei could only stare at the teen water tribe boy. "That's not how it works. No improvement happens in a short amount of time." "How long did you train then?" "Over 4 years of daily practice and workouts, with a few extraordinary expectations, of course," answered Lei while avoiding eye contact. He still remembers what his wife did to him not long ago. 4 years. We don't have that long. Sokka was basically grabbing the skin of his own face and pulling downwards in frustration. Lei only shrugged. "Should have started sooner then, the early bird gets the worm." As they approached Kalia, Lei's smile crumbled a bit. He and the northern girl still argued back and forth every goddamn day. Honestly, being trapped by his wife at least relieved him from facing Kalia for a while. He was rather grateful. Sigh. "I am missing the peace already." "You Jackie," said Kalia with a teasing smirk that made him want to punch her, "you know. The usual." "Kalia," he said with narrowed eyes. "Hello beautiful," said Sokka, swaggering his steps towards the voluptuous waterbender. "Sokka. Southern Water Tribe, I can't help but feel amazed by your strength and skill. You must be the strongest waterbender in the world." Sokka liked to believe that he learned a lot about how to woo girls from his travels. He even made a list. Rule number 1, never discourage them of anything. Rule number 2, always compliment their skills, they are fond of their achievements. Rule number 3, never undermine them in any way, shape or form. Suki made sure to engrave that lesson on his bones. Rule number 4, listen more and talk less. So far that's all he had, but it was working if you and the other girls he met during their travels across the Earth Kingdom were any proof of it. Kalia was totally his type. Age difference aside, she was the hottest girl he had ever seen, and she is from a water tribe. They have a lot in common. Unfortunately, all he got was awkward silence before both Kalia and Lei each raised an eyebrow, and Kalia couldn't help it, bursting out laughing loudly like a crazy person, holding her stomach and bending forward, almost losing her footing. Even tears could be seen in her eyes. "Ha ha 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 ha. See that, Jackie? Ha 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 ha. The pipsqueak is flirting with me. Ha 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 ha." Now, it's not hard for a girl to completely obliterate a guy's self-esteem, regardless of which universe, but talking about size aside, the one thing universally accepted as a metaphorical kick in the nuts to any dude is when the girl laughs at their attempt. Even Lei couldn't help but chuckle. He, you say that, but you and Madara started having an affair when he was around Sokka's age. Wait. Thought Sokka, already sweating bullets. I know, but look at him, his arms are like twigs. A boy like that can't handle me, no offense kid. For an instant. A second, a brief moment. Everyone could have sworn to have heard a loud cracking sound. It was really, really weird. Chapter 67, Road to Earth Kingdom. "Wait, so this is what you all travel in?" asked Sokka. A slight tone of depression could be noticed in his voice as he stared at the contents inside the airship, which was docked in a spacious location known as Kana Square within the heart of the capital. Inside the airship were the most luxurious things that Team Avatar had ever seen. And they were friends of King Bumi and Chief Arnook, so that tells how fancy this thing is. Yeah, the boy had a harsh moment a few minutes ago, but he bounced back up. Well, there's plenty of women in the world, I will find someone eventually. It's not like Katara has found her husband already. Fufufu, I didn't expect the Avatar and his companions to be so young, said Nari, rubbing Aang's bald head while Lei was busy securing the large barrel of spirit water inside the ship. Hey, we are not kids, okay? Said Katara with a trembling eyebrow. She was pissed. Ever since this group arrived, they had been treated like kids, and she would much rather they be treated the way they were before. Meh, that's how it works, little lady, said Kalia as she walked inside the airship while eating a sea jerky kebab. Such a nostalgic taste made her happy. We are not kids, shouted Katara. Well, tell that to our Avatar over there, said Sokka, sarcastically, while pointing towards Aang with his thumb. The poor Avatar boy was melting because of Nari's head pats like a lazy tiger seal. Ugh. Katara made angry noises and walked out of the airship, frustrated. Then a loud clap could be heard, making the remaining members of Team Avatar turn towards the doorway of the airship. All right kids, time to get out. We are leaving, said Madara with a smirk, having heard everything. Honestly, he felt surprisingly happy over how pissy Katara was being with the whole kid thing. He always found her rather annoying until the final season. Yes sir. Sokka did a military salute while pulling Aang away from Nari's side, though the bald kid was like a koala octopus not wanting to leave. They are good kids, aren't they? Asked Nari with a motherly tone. Chuckling, Madara only said, they do have their moments. Time slowly passed as the siege of the Northern Water Tribe came to a close. Madara left the North Pole the day after, and went back to his resort to manage things there. He had a talk with the spirits afterwards and was taught the most optimal way to use the spirit water, but sadly, his mental state wasn't nearly good enough to try it right now. He needed time to unwind. Time to relax and heal all the negativity inside of him due to the attack they suffered that day at the Uchiha resort. On the shores of what looked like a pink forest, there was a small yet luxurious hut, housing several workers who could be seen doing their job, which was taking care of their two newest arrivals. This is what I've been missing. Who knew that? Floating on a piece of driftwood for 3 weeks with no food or water, and sea vultures waiting to pluck out your liver, could make one so tense. Said Iroh with a beaming, optimistic smile, before looking towards a clearly unhappy Zuko as he walked towards him, so that they could both sit on the ground they missed so much. What is bothering you today, Prince Zuko? Ah. I see, the old man's tone became a bit grave. It's the anniversary, isn't it? In a brooding tone, the young prince nodded and answered, 3 years ago. Today. I was banished and I lost it all. He looked up towards the sky, I want it back, and to be honest uncle, I don't care much about the Avatar right now. But I want my honor and my throne. I want my father to not think that I am worthless. Concluded Zuko with a regretful look towards the horizon. I'm sure he doesn't. Why would he banish you if he didn't care? Said Iroh, trying his best to help his beloved nephew. Unfortunately. His words made Zuko get up and walk away, making Iroh grimace as he turned to one of the massagers. Ugh, that came out wrong, didn't it? As Zuko walked outside the massage hut, he could only sigh. They arrived not long ago, but he refused to let his presence be known to Madara. He stood at the outskirts of the resort, not wanting to show himself. But he knew. Madara was aware. Within his lands, nothing can be hidden from Madara's red eyes. It became a saying after years of people trying to infiltrate this place were met with swift ends, to never be heard of or seen again, and ever since. Whatever happened a month ago, the security of this place doubled, no. Tripled. He could see men walking around in unique dark-colored robes, each wearing a colorful navy blue and white haori on top, carrying curved sheathed swords known as katanas. The Shinsengumi. Zuko knew of them, he heard rumors. Now that winter was ending, many patrons finally returned here for a new round of gambling and relaxation, but Zuko, who had been here before, felt watched, all the time. Looking at the performers on the street, the food vendors, and the geisha that walked with glamorous and exotic kimonos and delicately painted faces, sometimes playing with paper fans while others sometimes played instruments called shamisen. Zuko couldn't figure out who was an agent, and who was simply a worker. Zuko wasn't wrong to feel that way. Ever since Madara returned, he decided to put together a real powerhouse to protect the resort. The former Bifong guards became the first generation of the resort's police force, or the Shinsengumi. While the former Kyoshi warriors started training new girls in several deadly arts including espionage and performances. The geisha on the streets were a mere branch of the true shadow that protected these lands. Many of the food vendors, the massagers, the artists, painters, sculptors, builders, and even some of the day-to-day clients that walked around the resort for their seasonal enjoyment were all part of the deadliest group of assassins. The Unawaban. Zuko didn't know about that organization, but he felt that someone was always watching. As he should, after training with Madara for so long. The teen just couldn't put his finger on who was the watcher. It's like teachers' lands have a culture of their own. Completely outside of the four nations. The banished prince couldn't help but feel proud of his own teacher, it must be related to his family. He stopped by the shores of the Suoka River, watching the high buildings of the main resort from a distance as his thoughts led him somewhere else. Family, huh? Mumbled the prince as he kept staring at nothing in specific. Almost perfect. One hair out of place. Said two elderly female voices as the vestiges of a well-executed lightning generation movement could still be seen on the deck of a luxurious Fire Nation royal ship. On the deck, a young woman could be seen, wearing imperial armor similar to Zuko's. Her dark hair was in a tightly pulled bun with bangs falling on both sides of her face. Although incredibly similar to Zuko, both in appearance and apparel, her armor and Zuko's had a keen difference. While Zuko's was black with red trimmings, this girl's armor was black with gold, a symbol of her royal status. Her pupils contracted at the elder's comments in the background as her amber yellow eyes sharpened. Almost isn't good enough. The girl gritted her teeth and went back through the same motions again and again, as more and more lightning sounds echoed through the northern seas. In a dimly lit makeshift temple within an Earth Kingdom fortress, a tall thin man with an incredibly sharp goatee, who was wearing blue robes and had an equally incredibly annoying voice, draped a bald tattooed boy in a Water Tribe cloak, an Earth Kingdom hat with leaves coming out from the top, part of a Fire Nation outfit and what appeared to be a belt. You are wearing a ceremonial piece of clothing from each of the bending nations. Now I will join the four elements in one. As he said water, he poured a jug of water into a fancy bowl, then came earth and he poured dirt, then fire, and the man took a nearby torch and threw it in. Air, he releases an air gust from a wooden contraption. Four elements together as one. The man, or how the people in the fortress called him, the Oracle, raised the bowl and flung the contents at Aang. The poor avatar could only clean his eyes with his fingers with an annoyed expression. This is just mud. So. Do you feel anything? The Oracle asked quizzically, raising a finger and catching everyone's interest. Aang then sneezed loudly, causing the mud to fly everywhere, coating the general of the fortress, Fong, and everyone else. The general could only rub the mud from his face. We have to find a way. Within a brightly lit room, with elegant chandeliers and luxurious furniture, most in the colors of black and red, a group of four could be seen sitting around a green table while putting down ceramic tiles with different symbols on them, each person with their own side. I think, this is. An old voice started low before increasing in excitement as he declares, Sumo. Isn't it? Sounds of resignation from the other three could be heard. Hey, old Iroh, are you sure you never played this before? Said an annoyed young man with wild long hair, wearing his traditional black and red kimono, sporting a fan sigil on the back of his red haori. How could I? You came up with this game, didn't you? The old man could only laugh. But I like this way more than that roulette game. He concluded with a frown. One of the other men at the table couldn't help but snicker, of course. You lost everything there. That's not nice, Jackie. We need to incentivize our visitors to keep playing the games. Not throw their losses in their faces, said the first young man. Oh. I see. Well, Mr. Iroh, I think you should try again. Who knows, maybe your luck in Mahjong will carry to other games. The old man could only sigh. Young people these days have no shame, trying to extort money from an old man without a single coin to his name. The one woman playing the game with the three men could only chuckle. Fufufu, by the way, Mr. Iroh, have you already told Zuko that you have been coming here on a daily basis? The old man scratched the back of his head with an awkward smile. Well, I did say to him that I would go out to procure some things. He was so concerned with trying not to be noticed by you that he only asked me to not show myself. And yet, you did exactly that. Said Madara with his classic Saitama face. You can't blame an old man for wanting to enjoy what is left of his time in this world, can you? Asked Iroh with a pitiful expression. Shameless, both Madara and Lei thought at the same time. Well, the game is over, so I think it's better for me to go back to my nephew before he decides to blow something up. He has been rather irritated recently. Said the old general as he stood up. You can go ahead, said Nari as she started to gather the pieces of the game, putting them back in the box. I will clean everything here. As the three men agreed and left, Nari kept humming with a smile on her face. She was rather happy to see their place safer. She was even made the head of their secret spy force, and she was doing an absurdly good job at that. But if one looked at the tiles on her side of the table, they would have noticed that she could have won the game at any point, but didn't. What is life without some mischievousness, right? Madara and Lei always look so funny when Iroh wins anything. How can I bring myself to stop it from happening? Fufufu. Chapter 68, Royal Siblings. A luxurious Fire Nation warship neared the northwestern coast of the Earth Kingdom, also known as the Northern Colonies. On the horizon it's already possible to see the pink forest of sakura trees, a picturesque sight for many, but to the Fire Nation soldiers, this place is a cursed land. As many soldiers were steeling themselves to finally set foot in the ghost lands, a royal carriage was brought from inside the ship, carried by 4 strong men that bowed once they reached the deck, allowing the daughter of the Fire Lord Ozai to disembark. Facing the neat rows of soldiers, perfectly aligned, with a narrowed gaze that seemed to inspect every detail possible, she finally spoke. My brother and my uncle have disgraced the Fire Lord, and have brought shame on all of us. You might have mixed feelings about attacking members of the royal family. I understand. But I assure you, if you hesitate, I will not hesitate to bring you down. Dismissed. As the soldiers went back to their quarters to prepare for what was to come, the captain, wearing a more decorated armor than all the others, approached the girl. Princess, I'm afraid that the tides will not allow us to bring the ship into port before nightfall. I'm sorry, Captain, but I do not know much about tides. Could you explain something to me? Of course, Your Highness. Do tides command this ship? I'm afraid I don't understand, Your Highness. You said the tides would not allow us to bring the ship in. Her tone grew sharper, as did her eyes. Do the tides command this ship? No, Princess. And if I were to have you thrown overboard, would the tides think twice about smashing you against the rocky shore? The poor captain gulps hard, beads of sweat forming on his forehead. No, Princess. Well then. Azula runs her fingers through her bangs. Maybe you should worry less about the tides that have already made up their mind about killing you, and worry more about me, who is still mulling that possibility over. She frowned, and the captain could clearly see her displeasure. I'll pull us in. He says in a hurry, only waiting for her permission to leave. Yes you will, or you will have a private chat with the tides that you seem to respect above my orders. As the captain scrambled to go do what he was supposed to do, Azula didn't display a sneer or anything like that. That was beneath her. She simply stared at everyone expecting nothing but perfection. If one couldn't achieve that, she'd simply replace them for someone who could. The Fire Nation did not lack people. After entering their temporary shelter, a dark room, Iroh pulled out a small bag and placed it on the table, pouring all the content out with a childish glee in his aged eyes. Look at these magnificent shells, he said as he picked up a conch. I'll enjoy these keepsakes for years to come. We don't need any more useless things. You forget. We have to carry everything ourselves now. Zuko said as he followed Iroh inside of the building, with a frown on his face as he crossed his arms, tapping the floor with one foot as Iroh picked up his souvenirs, clearly displaying his discontent. Iroh raised a single finger and adopted his old and wise stance, clearly ready to teach some very important life lesson to his beloved nephew, when a voice echoed from the side. Hello, brother, uncle. Turning to the side, Zuko's eyes went wide as anger sprouted inside his heart. Iroh, on the other hand, sharpened his gaze as he stared at the girl that was being attended by 4 different workers. What are you doing here? Zuko asked in a low tone, clearly reining in his anger, making Iroh proud that he learned from his first encounter with Zhao back then. Dismissing the workers, Azula stood up and walked close to the table, grabbing one of the shells in her hand. In my country, we exchange a pleasant hello before asking questions. Have you become uncivilized so soon, Zuzu? Don't call me that. Zuko lost his temper. What a surprise. Even Iroh could only sigh. The prince had much to learn and he had decided to interfere before Azula made Zuko even worse. To what do we owe this honor? The old general asked, clearly upset with the whole situation. Must be a family trait. Both of you are so quick to get to the point. She broke the shell that she was holding with her fingertips, leaving Iroh angry, before continuing, I've come with a message from home. Father changed his mind. Family is suddenly very important to him. He heard rumors of plans to overthrow him, treacherous plots. Family is the only thing you can really trust. Father. He regrets your banishment. He wants you home. A dead silence permeated the air for several seconds. Did you hear me? Azula raised an eyebrow, waiting for Zuko's response. You should be happy. Excited. Grateful. I just gave you great news. I'm sure your brother simply needs a moment, Iroh spoke from the side, with a thoughtful expression on his face. Don't interrupt, uncle. Azula exclaimed furiously before turning to Zuko. I still haven't heard my thank you. I'm not a messenger. I didn't have to come all this way. Father. He regrets. He wants me back. Zuko spoke with a lost expression on his face. I can see that you need time to take this in. I'll come to call on you tomorrow. Good evening. Not giving a chance for the nephew-uncle duo to speak, she exited the place, leaving Zuko to ponder what had just been said. It is unbelievable, said Zuko with the same lost expression. It is unbelievable. I have never known my brother to regret anything. Iroh replied as he caressed his beard while staring out the window thoughtfully. Did you listen to Azula? Father realized how important family is to him. Zuko grew irritated. He cares about me. Turning to Zuko and holding his arms out in a gesture, Iroh argued. I care about you. And if Ozai wants you back, well, I think it may not be for the reasons you imagine. You don't know how my father feels about me. You don't know anything. Then a third voice echoed through the room. Oops, it seems that I have interrupted some family bonding time. Spoke a tall handsome man with black wild hair, wearing his classic yukata while smoking his kizaru with a smirk. Teacher. Zuko's expression and mood brightened, but then he grew embarrassed. I didn't mean to hide myself from you, I just didn't want you to see me in my current state, the last time I visited. I had a crew and a ship, and now I have nothing. The banished prince finished his argument with a downcast expression, lowering his head in shame. Ooh. I'm surprised that you actually believe that I wasn't aware of your presence here from day one. Madara says with a smirk, winking to Iroh in the background playfully. Zuko could only grow more embarrassed, but said nothing. Madara is the one that kept the conversation going. I've heard your crazy sister decided to stop by for a spa session. Said the Uchiha while exhaling some smoke from his mouth. I'm saddened to miss such a touching reunion among siblings. How did you dash? Zuko was about to ask, but when he saw Madara raising an eyebrow, he just shut up. His sister just arrived and Madara already knew. That is a scary kind of information network right there. Anyway. What was that all about? I swear that I heard some shouts before walking in here. Asked Madara, before Zuko could make more of a fool of himself. My sister, she came to tell me that father wants me back. Zuko said with a smile, which only saddened Iroh and Madara more, since both of them could see the red flags glowing with bright lights. Really? Asked Madara while sitting on a chair nearby. Yes. I was just packing my things. Uncle seems to not believe her though, Zuko said with an angry frown on his face, avoiding looking towards the old general. Madara gave the teen an understanding nod, his distrust is understandable. Zuko frowned at that but stopped in his tracks as Madara raised a hand, signaling that he hadn't finished his words yet. Would you believe it if the Fire Lord contacted me today, to tell me that the Fire Nation wanted to promote me, to make me a hero of the Fire Nation, and to give me my well-deserved noble status? Asked Madara, making even Iroh smile a bit in the background. Zuko could only stare at Madara and raise his eyebrow. Of course not. Father branded you an enemy of the Fire Nation for years, how could he? Then it clicked for Zuko, making him stop talking. Ah. It seems that you do get it, huh? Says Madara with a saddened smile on his face. It can't be, can it? Zuko's face displayed distress, staring at both his teacher and uncle. You tell me, is your sister known for her lying skills? Asked Madara. Zuko couldn't even answer that. Iroh could only come to his side and pat him on the back. What? What now, teacher? Asked a lost Zuko. Well, there are two options here. Madara says while taking a puff of his kizaru. This made the family duo stare at him intently. First, you run away and I hold them back. Your sister might be scary to you and those fodder that you call soldiers, but to me she is just a child. He even stared at Iroh, as the old man clearly knew that both of them could take Asala easily, but Zuko was not there yet. The second is, you follow her and see how deep the rabbit hole goes. The Uchiha simply shrugged nonchalantly. And what would you do to her, teacher? Zuko asked with a trembling voice. He didn't really hate Azula, no. She was family. How could he hate her? Despite all of her flaws, she was his sister. What else? I would beat her back to her ship and send her packing, Madara answered. It's too early to start killing princesses. He completed, making Zuko gulp harshly. I think we need some time to think about it, Mr. Uchiha. Iroh approached once he saw the doubt in Zuko's eyes. He knew that the boy was suffering a lot right now, but he was rather happy that Madara joined him in this way at least Zuko could see the truth. Sometimes the truth is so ugly that we'd rather believe in a lie, thought the old general with a saddened face. Nodding, Madara simply stood up and left. Oh, he would be there for when they decided to leave, in either case he would meet Azula. That girl came in swaggering like she owned this place, time to give her the Sokka treatment. The next day, both Zuko and Iroh could be seen carrying bags on their backs as they walked towards the big royal ship of the Fire Nation. Welcoming them there were 2 rows of soldiers, one on each side, while Asala stood on the ramp with her arms spread wide and a happy smile on her face. Brother. Uncle. Welcome. I'm so glad you decided to come. The duo simply nodded at the princess words, before the captain took over. Are we ready to depart, your highness? Asala answered sweetly, set our course for home, captain. That home managed to pull some strings in Zuko's heart. Home, he said with a complicated gaze towards the horizon. The captain then joined Zuko and Iroh and walked ahead of them on the ramp, Raising his hand to signal the soldiers, you heard the princess. Raise the anchors. We're taking the prisoners home. The man's eyes widened as he realized his mistake and he looked at Azula, but before anyone could say anything about it, a large blast of fire exploded on the captain's back, launching him towards Azula like a rocket. The fire princess dodged sideways easily, and when she turned her gaze towards the ramp, she saw Zuko and Iroh already beating the soldiers that were surrounding them. You knew, huh? Asked Azula with a sarcastic smirk, not caring about it at all. Kicking a soldier in the side of their head, Zuko turned towards Azula with his own smirk. You are known for your lies, sister. Smart enough to see the truth, foolish enough to follow through with it, it seems that your banishment didn't improve you that much, brother. She jumped and launched a blast of blue flames from her hand aiming towards Zuko's head. Lowering his body, Zuko waited until the blast of blue fire passed over his head before rolling to the side, dodging another blast. Oh. It seems that you did learn a thing or two. She said as she took her lightning stance, but let's see how good your dodging skills have become. She was about to start doing the circular movements with her arms when a lazy voice came from behind her. Not enough to dodge that, girly, but everything else. I'm sure he can take it. Am I right, firecracker? A sarcastic smirk could be seen on his face as Madara was sitting on the railing of the royal ship, still enjoying his Kizaru with one hand and having the other lazily hanging from his kimono. Chapter 69, Azula. Azula stood there, halfway into her lightning-generating pose as she turned her head towards the railing of the ship, her golden eyes sharpened as she asked herself. How did this person appear here without anyone knowing? Long black hair covering the right eye, fair skin, and considering where we are. You must be the so-called ghost, said the stoic princess, not displaying even a single emotion in her eyes. Oh, so you heard of me? Madara asked with a smirk. I've read about you. Debuted 8 years ago, stealing from small Fire Nation camps, with many soldiers dying by your hands, and 1 year later. Besieged by a battalion of 200 firebenders in the swamps near Gaoling, you killed more than half and escaped alive, earned the title of Greedy Ghost first, then Red-Eyed Ghost and many others. Labeled as the worst criminal of the Fire Nation until the news of the Avatar spread. She said with an emotionless tone as if she was reciting a written document by memory alone. You disappeared for many years to who knows where, then suddenly bought this land from the previous owner and now run a gambling resort with a net worth that makes nobles jealous. Impressive. Said Madara while standing up from the railing and approaching the main deck. I thought the same. But looking at you right now. You don't seem like much, said Azula as she followed his steps towards the main deck. She knew this would be a showdown between both of them. Looking to the sides, Madara could see that all the soldiers were being beaten by Iroh and Zuko easily. Azula would be their only challenge here. With a snarky grin Madara answered the Fire Princess, you also look like a bitter disappointment to me. That managed to finally break Azula's mask by a smidge, as her left eye twitched slightly before she reined her emotions and took her stance. In her eyes Madara in front of her was also a prodigy if the documents she saw had any truth in them, and today she will prove herself to be the superior one. Seeing Madara with his nonchalant posture, she decided to strike first. She punched a massive pillar of blue flames towards Madara. The heat was abnormal and even Zuko could see that she was giving her all here. Madara kept his grin and simply leaned backwards in a near-inhuman angle, letting the column of flames pass right over him, but he made sure to extend the tip of his Kizaru towards the blue fire. This does taste better. Said Madara after recovering his stance and taking a puff. It's minty, with a touch of delusions of grandeur, not bad. Azula's frown grew, the anger slowly distorting her beautiful visage, as she started blasting fire from all her limbs non-stop, while Madara simply dodged every single one of them with an easygoing smirk. The Uchiha didn't even try to approach her during the whole fight. Seeing the absurd acrobatic maneuvers that Madara was employing to dodge her fire, Azula couldn't help but frown even further. The corner of her mouth opened a little to display her clenched teeth. It seems that you only know how to dodge, taunted the teen princess while performing a fiery spinning kick aimed at Madara's torso, which he simply jumped over with ease. Nah, it's you that only knows how to miss. Gore. She doubled her output. She would hit this man and prove that she was the superior prodigy. Zuko's mouth was gaping at what he was watching. His monstrous sister was fighting with all her might against his teacher, to the point that even he himself wouldn't be able to endure the potency of those blue flames, but his teacher, he was treating the monster Azula like a child. Dodging another fire blast from Azula, Madara nodded. Good, adaptation, improvisation, but your weakness is not in your technique. I have no weakness. Shouted Azula while blasting fire with her two fists simultaneously, aiming towards the flanks of her enemy. Once she saw Madara crouching to dodge both blasts, she grinned. Lightning started dancing on her fingers as she quickly did circular movements with her hands. Let's see you dodge this. Pointing two fingers towards her foe, a mighty lightning bolt erupted. For a fraction of a second the world seemed to go black and white, and before one could blink a loud explosion engulfed Madara's location. Watching from the sides, Zuko clenched his fist. Teacher. He mumbled, but a hand on his shoulder took his attention. Mr. Uchiha will be fine, we should escape while we have the chance, your teacher is giving us a precious opportunity, let's not waste it, said the wise old general. But. He looked between the explosion and his uncle before frowning. Fine, but if he is hurt, we come back, uncle. Of course. Said the smiling old general as he and his nephew sneakily jumped from the ship. Back at the deck of the ship, Azula grinned at the sight in front of her, the explosion that mixed both lightning and fire. As expected, you're not much, she said with a victorious grin. That was dangerous, huh? Her golden eyes went wide as Madara's voice came from behind her, the bored tone of his voice irked her like no other. Not taking any chances, she lifted her foot to do a high kick with her firebending, her aim was for the kill with this kick. But the kick was easily blocked by Madara's own stretched leg, but what made her eye go wide was not Madara's sudden red eyes, no. It was the fact that no fire came out. She was a prodigy, she wouldn't commit such an amateurish mistake like forgetting to bend in a fight. Clenching her teeth harder, she went for another kick, spinning towards the other side, which Madara easily blocked with his knee, and once again, no fire. How? She couldn't help but ask, this should be impossible. Very presumptuous of you to think that fire and lightning are your allies when in my presence. What followed was what looked like a synchronized dance of kicks from both sides. Azula was becoming more and more shocked, her current inability to bend fire aside, every move she did Madara would replicate perfectly, even fighting techniques that were exclusive to her and her family. Kick meeting kick, Madara never once let go of his Kizaru or moved his relaxed hand that was still hanging from his kimono, he was enjoying this. Come on. Stop trying to hit me and hit me. He couldn't help but say with a healthy dose of snark. Azula was starting to breathe harder. It didn't matter how unexpected her strike was, Madara was always ready and mirrored her like he was her own shadow, which unnerved the teen girl. Over 10 minutes of pure martial combat already passed and Azula could feel her shins aching due to Madara's blocks. What annoyed her is that Madara never struck her, he only blocked and parried. How dare he take me lightly? Her own lapse of concentration worked against her as suddenly she felt the tip of his Kizaru pressing against her neck, while Madara's voice once again echoed from behind her. And you are dead, girlie. Beads of sweat covered Azula's forehead as she breathed haggardly. This was the most intense physical fight she ever had, and she used to train with her father. What are you? She asked with a narrowed gaze at her opponent while reining in her emotions, although her trembling eyes couldn't be hidden. Madara Uchiha. That doesn't explain anything. No, that explains everything. As the teen girl kept staring at the man, he slowly distanced himself from her with an ever-present smirk on his lips. She couldn't help but say. As I thought, once a criminal, always a criminal, a traitor shielding traitors. I resent that, I never betrayed anyone, and it was you who struck first and let them run away while being completely focused on me. Silence remained for a dozen or so seconds, she kept scanning the surroundings and noticed that Madara was right, Zuko and Iroh had long left. Then, Madara decided that he had enough. Well, that was an interesting impromptu lesson, good luck to you and your ventures. Said Madara while turning away, walking like he didn't even care about her trying to strike his back. Lesson. Azula raised her eyebrow, not understanding what he meant. Would you rather call it a defeat? Madara asked without even turning back, but she could feel his grin growing wider. Her fists clenched so hard that the skin on the back of her hands turned pale white, she wouldn't dignify him with an answer. You will answer for your crimes when I report you to the Fire Lord, she said with deep anger and frustration in her voice. Really? Said Madara while turning his head towards the girl. Then perhaps I should join the Avatar, huh? Her heart stopped for a fraction of a second right there. If that happened, things would go against her Lord Father's plans, and it would be her fault. What do you want? You and your people keep away from my land and my business, and I will keep my distance from the tattooed kid. We have a deal, she said after much inner struggle, as this was the first time in her whole life that she had to compromise. She was not enjoying this. Nodding sagely, Madara then concluded, now, I would be grateful if you told Daddy Dearest that it seems that many mercenaries and even Earth Kingdom nobles do not respect his rule, since they dared to attack this place not long ago. I already sent him a letter a while ago, but it would be great if his favorite child could help my case. She was about to retort when Madara interrupted her, again. I shall take my leave first, good luck with the repairs, they might take a while, he sarcastically spoke as he jumped on top of the railing and leaned backwards, simply falling from the boat. Those words seemed to bring Azula back to the present situation, making her look towards her vessel and see flames consuming many parts of the deck, and most had already spread towards the interior. The few soldiers that were not knocked out were just watching her with incredulous eyes. She didn't like that one bit. Wake everyone up, I want the ship fixed by tonight, we have to return to the Fire Nation as soon as possible. Why, Your Highness, what about the G-Ghost? Asked one scared soldier. He will have his due. Her eyes narrowed dangerously as both her fists and teeth clenched in frustration and even unwillingness. For the first time in her life, Azula felt that she was just a regular person, the monster was the one that completely demolished her with ease. Looking towards her hands, and finally seeing the blue flame sparking on her palm, she finally let out a sigh of relief. Whatever Madara did that interrupted her bending, even if temporarily, truly scared her. Chapter 70, Plots. On the horizon, the second largest city in the Earth Kingdom could be seen. Built on top of a tall mountain peak, part of the Kola mountain range in the southwestern Earth Kingdom, it rises high out of a deep chasm and was created by earthbenders several centuries ago. Being considered the second most defensible city fortress in the known world, it was shocking to see smoke coming out of several sectors of its area. Omashu now sports huge Fire Nation flags on each side of its walls. Inside the city, the famous Omashu delivery system now lays bare and empty, with no earthbender to work on the lifts and slides anymore. The city looks bleak and broken, especially during the current nighttime, with the clouds fully covering the moonlight. Walking through the deserted streets, surrounded by red armored guards carrying metal torches, a small group of 3 could be seen, well 2.5. There really is no fathoming the depths of my hatred for this place, said a young female in a monotone voice, her long loose robes billowing with the little wind that managed to reach inside the city. Her black hair and eyes only deepened her deadpan expression even more, as if she was always bored. Your father was appointed governor. We're like royalty here. Be happy and enjoy it, said an older elegant woman wearing traditional Fire Nation red robes while carrying a baby in her arms, trying to make her daughter smile at least a little bit. Sure, and then he went back to his hobby that he got since he came back from that resort last year, replies the monotone young girl. Don't be mean to your father, answered her mother, Michi, with a wry, forced smile. He deserves his hobbies. Yes, it's not like it has gotten out of hand or anything, said Mai with a dry sarcasm, not even showing a smidge of emotion. He paid his debts and we earned good favor with the Fire Lord. Now we are governors of New Ozai. Don't be too harsh on him. It's still disturbing to see your 40-something-year-old father yelling to the world, declaring that a man more than half of his age is his lifelong rival. The older woman tripped a little bit, her smile getting more forced. Nothing wrong with a little competition, look where it led us. We rule this city now. Sure, let's call an old man collecting anything related to a former criminal and writing conspiracy theories about their origin and goals. A little competition. At this point, even the baby in Michi's arms started giggling. Be as it may, as long as he is responsible with money and not burning it in gambling, your father is entitled to do whatever he wants, concluded Michi with a tone of finality. He literally burns money with his new smoking habits. Mai couldn't help but sigh to think that our boringly normal family would be more exciting than our new hometown. Nothing ever happens. At that moment, a loud noise could be heard from the stone ramps that lead to their location. Looking up, the entourage could see a large boulder exploding, and only a small kid in orange, with an orange hat and holding a staff staring at them from one of the layers above. Pointing towards the badly disguised but still unbelievably effective avatar, Michi shouted. The resistance. Mai finally let out a faint smile on her face, dashing towards the staff-wielding kid. Spreading her arms, many tiny arrows flew towards her target as she followed the perpetrators through the streets of Omashu. As she reached the platform above, she could see the 2 guards that went ahead of her being tossed back to the ground level. She couldn't help but roll her eyes at their professionalism. As the chase continued, she finally got face to face with the kid, but after tossing a hidden blade that hits the target's staff, her targets were suddenly swallowed by the earth, leaving her to sigh in disappointment and boredom again. She could only slump her shoulders a bit and turn around, returning to her family. Did you get hurt? Asked a worried Michi. No. We will get them next time, sweetie, said her mother with a gentle smile. After a long walk, the family of 3 finally reached the palace on the top of the highest point of the city, and as expected, the lord of the city wasn't there. Mai and Michi could only sigh as they both go to one of the side doors. Opening, they see the messiest room ever. On the wall there were many articles connected one to the other with pins and strings. A middle-aged man with gray and white disheveled hair, wearing messy yet luxurious Fire Nation robes with pointy shoulders, and nasty bags under his eyes, could be seen writing something on a piece of paper, before putting it on top of a pile of already written paper. Sir. Mai. Michi. I thought you were going out for a walk. Asked the man with a look that screamed, go to bed. We've been out for 3 hours, Dad. Said Mai with no emotion behind her words. Tom is already in his crib, dear. Said Michi with a badly hidden concerned face. Staring at the 2 women in front of him, Wakano, the patriarch of the family, only nodded. I see. I am almost done with my work here. It shouldn't take too long. Dad, you said that last week. Dear, you need some sleep. No. What I need is the truth. Shouts Akano, slamming his hand on his messy desk. Walking around the messy room, towards the panel on the wall, Mai couldn't help but raise an eyebrow. I think you are too much into this, Dad. She said with an uncertain yet still empty tone. This is the work of the past year. Shouted Akano with pride, pointing to the messy wall. The first sight of the ghost, has way deeper meaning than the world thinks it does. If my theories are right dash. The patriarch was quickly interrupted by his frowning wife. That's it. You are going to bed, said the angry woman while dragging her husband forcefully. Wait. There's so much more to uncover. Tomorrow. No. I need to know what Uchiha means. Go to bed. The world needs to understand dash. Sigh. Mai could only rub her forehead with her fingers, staring at the pieces of paper spread across the wall. She couldn't help but shake her head at her father's obsession about this whole thing. He had been writing theories about the ghost for years, but ever since he went to the Uchiha resort last year it evolved to a whole new level. Her eyes stopped at one piece of information that her father gathered during the year. Her fingers trembled a bit when she read it. Zuko. Closing her eyes and taking a deep breath, she turned around and left the room, closing the door and locking it. No one could see her father's hobbies. It would be incredibly embarrassing. On the deck of a massive luxurious Fire Nation ship, a teen girl could be seen breathing harshly as she went through an incredibly intense training. Even the soldiers surrounding her were shocked at what they were seeing. It's unwise to keep going. Your body needs to rest. Lee and Lo, the two elderly mummies that followed Azula during her travel towards the Uchiha resort, expressed their worry. I need to get stronger, said the girl with a growing frown, before ignoring the two elders. She had been training during her whole trip back to the Fire Nation, and to her, it still felt like it wasn't enough. The sisters could only shake their head. Luckily one of the soldiers approached them from the side. The capital is in sight, Your Highness. We shall be docking in 30 minutes. Taking a long breath, Azula stopped her intense workout while grabbing a towel. Noted. I shall retire to my quarters for a bath before we arrive. I don't want interruptions. Her eyes narrowed as she stared at the soldier, who gulped hard and nodded quickly. After her bath, Azula could be seen back in her pristine armor, with her perfectly groomed hair and makeup, walking back to the deck towards her consultants, the two living undead. When tracking your brother and uncle, traveling with the royal procession may no longer be an option, said Lee. May no longer be wise, said Lo. If you hope to keep the element of surprise, said both at the same time. You're right. The royal procession is dead weight. If I want to catch my prey, I must be agile, nimble. I need a small, elite team. It's time to visit some old friends. Even though she did her best to keep her aloofness, the fist she was holding behind her back clenched tightly. If I was strong, really strong, I wouldn't need anyone. Other people just drag me down. The beating that Madara gave her left scars deeper than anyone realized. In a dark meeting room, where only 6 people could be seen sitting on comfortable zabutons, on a tatami floor, a man with long wild black hair turned towards one of the other 5. Did you do it? Yes, Mr. Uchiha, we infiltrated 3 agents on Princess Azula's ship. If our information is right, they just arrived at the Fire Nation capital, answered Nari, taking a pause before continuing. As per usual, none of the agents were aware of one another. Each one of them infiltrated during different times of the day. AKA went last night, Ao went during the fight between you and Azula, and Kuro took advantage of their long repair time to take over someone else's identity. The Anawaban agents had code names, of course. And their report? Any discrepancies? None. All of them do contain different details, mostly due to their different positions within the ship, but the overall information is the same. Nodding. Good. Now we have a link to the capital. It's time to start phase 2 of our plan. Standing up, Madara then pointed towards a huge map on the wall, more specifically the eastern side of the Earth Kingdom. The acquisition phase is over. From now on until the fall of the Fire Lord Ozai, we shall work on phase 2, expansion. Turning his glowing red Sharingan towards Nari, Lei, Kalia, Gon, and Kira, Madara grinned. I want all the eastern colonies under our rule within a year. Yes, sir. All of them said at the same time. Chapter 71, Grim Reality. Please, tell me you're here to kill me, said a bored, monotonous Mai while she stared at Azula and Tai Li walking down the royal palanquin in front of the palace of Omashu. The dark girl didn't even bat an eye at the sight of 6 poor bastards who were breathing hard due to the fact that they were carrying the 2 girls all the way up from the bottom of the slopes of Omashu. She stared at Azula for a second, before displaying a slight smile on her otherwise emotionless face. Both girls can't help but laugh. It's great to see you, Mai, said Azula with a friendly smile, placing her hands on Mai's shoulders. Tai Li, on the other hand, rushed forward and gave Mai a big hug, receiving an uncomfortable pat on her back from her awkward friend. I thought you ran off and joined the circus. You said it was your calling, said Mai. Well. Tai Li forced a very convincing smile. Azula called a little louder. Placing a hand on the shoulders of both of her friends, Azula spoke, I have a mission and I need you both. Count me in. Anything to get me out of this place. Mai instantly replied as she stared at the palace with an annoyed look. As the girls started walking inside, to proceed with the proper protocol for these kinds of things since Mai is a noble and can't just be yoinked from her family as easily as Ty Lee can, the hyper friend of the trio whispered into Mai's ear. Is your father still acting weird about that whole thing? Worse, Mai's eye twitched a little bit as she recalled the memory of her father's conspiracy room. Everything was made worse because of how long it took for the old Akano to discover that Tom, her brother, disappeared for hours. It would have been more if her mother didn't come back. The dude had one job. What are you two talking about? Asked Azula with feigned interest. Mai and Ty Lee exchanged glances, and Ty Lee, being the talkative one, took the initiative. Mai's father has been writing weird reports, not really anything related to the Fire Nation or anything. He is into conspiracies and things, mostly directed towards the famous ghost that showed up in the last 8 or so years. Azula's eye twitched a little bit and she clenched her fist ever so slightly, so obviously, both of her friends noticed, but they decided not to talk about it considering how Azula decided to brush it off. It's a waste of time, Mai. If you weren't my friend, I would have reported your father's misbehavior to the Fire Lord. I'm glad that we are friends then. Answered Mai. But she got the hint. The moment Azula was displeased with her, her father's embarrassing hobbies would end up on the Fire Lord's table, and what would come after that, she didn't even want to think about the outcome. The meeting with Akano went how Mai expected it to go, and, while her father tried his best to appear proper, Azula's keen eye could spot his slightly messy robes. The resistance, huh? Asked Azula with a smirk while watching both Akano and Michi prostrating themselves in front of her. You stay here. Mai will handle the hostage trade so you don't have a chance to mess it up. As the princess stood up and started walking towards the doorway, she spoke. It's time to let Omashu die and the name New Ozai be known. We're trading a 2-year-old for a king, said Azula, watching the mighty King Bumi inside a metal coffin being carried by chains being lowered just beside her. Her gaze turned to the conspicuous trio among the resistance and continued, a powerful, earthbending king. Bumi nods with a happy smile. It just doesn't seem like a fair trade, does it? The Fire Princess asked while staring at Mai. You're right. Mai spoke while fighting a massive inner struggle, but it is as Azula said, as long as she is considered a friend, her family will not suffer, hopefully. The deal's off. She spoke with a stern voice as she quickly stole glances at Tom, making sure he was all right. Azula smiled slyly as Mai commanded the soldiers to pull Bumi back up. Hoo-hoo. See you all later. Hey, shouted the incredibly amused old king, while still laughing, from inside the coffin as he was lifted back up. Bumi. Aang shouted as he sprinted forward with his glider in hand, increasing his speed with airbending. Azula tried to stop him by blocking his path with a mighty stream of blue flames, but the young avatar dodged easily by leaping high into the air with the help of his bending. Azula was completely shocked by this incredible jump and could only watch as Aang briefly touched the scaffolding that held the crane leading Bumi upwards, unfolded his glider and flew up to follow his old friend. Unfortunately, the same air that was lifting him up also sent his makeshift hat flying, which exposed his airbender tattoos. The Avatar, said Azula with wide eyes for a second before they narrowed again, her lips stretching into a smirk, my lucky day. Walking through a lush green forest, 2 hooded figures could be seen as they ventured through the few spots of sunlight that managed to pierce through the canopy of leaves that covered the sky. Here, take this, said a young male voice as he handed a water skin to the shorter hooded figure, who grabbed it without much haste and slowly drank from it. It saddens me that we won't be able to enjoy the amenities of the resort for a while, said the older, shorter hooded figure. For the rest of our lives, said the younger, taller one, if we are lucky. He concluded a bit downcast and sad. At least Mr. Uchiha prepared supplies beforehand, although a carriage would help more. Rolling his eyes, the taller one said, don't start with that, uncle. Teacher had no obligation to provide us with supplies, yet he even gave us money so that we don't starve. You are sounding incredibly ungrateful right now. I was just saying. Iroh shrugged as he handed the water skin back to Zuko. How much do we have? Enough to last for a while, not enough for the rest of our lives. If we decide to live long, that is. Iroh nodded with a serene smile. You are not taking this seriously, are you? Anger rose in Zuko's heart as he watched his easygoing uncle that seemed not bothered by their situation. Oh, but I am. I am fully focused on contemplating what we should eat tonight. Perhaps some tea could help me figure it out faster. A loud stomp echoed through the patch of forest they were in as Zuko displayed his emotions. You only care about TEA. Do you understand our circumstances? We are wanted criminals. For life. T. You would be happy to have clean water to drink once a day if we don't figure out how to get out of this. Day after day, the duo of uncle and nephew walked. They went through forests, rivers, villages, and even some fortresses, and finally reached the central area of the Earth Kingdom, the arid, inhospitable area that seemed to be receiving more and more refugees since the fall of Omashu. Looking at them, it makes me feel like we are the lucky ones here. said Zuko in a low tone, more to himself than to his uncle who was right beside him. Yet they still stand. Refusing to give up, said his uncle with a wise tone. Stubbornness fails in face of hunger and despair, said Zuko, pointing towards a group of deranged, thin, and weakened refugees ganging up on a poor merchant that seemed to also be on his last rope just for a piece of bread. And breeds the worst in people. Iroh could only frown gravely at the sight of such an event. What do we have here? A deep voice echoed as a tall, armored man with strong arms and carrying a polearm on his back, approached the duo. Those seem to be some good quality cloaks you have. What else do you two have underneath? A desperate sinister smirk appeared on his face as 5 more men encircled Zuko and Iroh. My friends, I'm sure we can reach a good deal here. Iroh stepped forward, trying to pacify the situation. My nephew and I just had some good luck in finding these cloaks and some coins, nothing much, but we can surely divide it among us. Zuko frowned and gave a harsh look at that. The tall guy laughed. You hear that, boys? They want to share. What followed was a round of laughter as more and more thugs surrounded them. Don't worry, we will divide your things really well among ourselves. I bet they have more than just a few coins down there. Yeah. Iroh could only sigh in defeat as Zuko's hand was placed on his shoulder. It's not your fault, uncle. Teacher once told me that the circumstances create the villains, but he also taught me that there's no such thing as peace through compromise, because once you compromise once, the others won't stop until you starve to death. Zuko's eyes narrowed dangerously as his hand moved in a blur, tossing 4 kunai at the 4 toughest-looking thugs that surrounded them. Blood sprayed everywhere as 4 throats were instantly pierced by the sharp tools. Unsheathing his twin scimitars, Zuko jumped into action, hacking and slashing like they weren't men, but simply wooden dummies. All the anger and resentment that he was feeling was unleashed on top of these robbers with no care. Limbs flying, blood flowing, Zuko avoided using his firebending to hide his identity. At this moment he was so happy that Madara focused on his martial combat instead of bending. His teacher was wise indeed. Zuko. An elderly voice brought him back to the real world. He was in a trance while slaughtering people, afraid to lose what little they had. Looking around he saw several destroyed corpses, many more crippled and a lot of scared people in the background. Uncle. It's okay. Iroh placed his hand on Zuko's shoulder. Everything will be okay. Let's find somewhere else to rest and I shall brew one of my original tea recipes for you. Zuko simply nodded with his head lowered as he sheathed his blades, following his uncle outside the refugee outpost towards somewhere else. After they walked long enough to find a cave to hide in, Zuko broke down in silent tears, rubbing his eyes from time to time to try to stay inconspicuous in front of his uncle. This was the first time he took a human life. Even in the original Zuko never directly killed anyone. Yes, people die because of his actions, but by that logic, many died and will die due to Aang. Or do you believe those dozens of Fire Nation ships he destroyed during the Northern Siege had no one inside? The point is, he didn't personally kill anyone before. This was the first lives he took with his own hands. All the stress that added up, all the fears, worries and insecurities about his family, his honor. Everything was already weighing heavily on his shoulders, and now a bunch of nobodies tried to rob the items that were provided by his teacher. The last true light in this world that refused to shut him out, that always welcomed him with open arms, that taught him, that gave him strength and confidence. He couldn't hold back. No, he refused to hold back. The feeling of taking a life, staring into the person's eyes, watching their light fading away. His whole life Zuko heard a glorified fairy tale about strength and power. He was only 16 years old. For the whole second half of his life he grew up hearing tales of the ghost killing his way through soldiers. How exciting it was to hear about such adventures back then. But now that he did it himself, he felt dirty. All those tales, from Fire Lord Sozin's rise to power to Ghost's debut, always depicted the act of killing as a grand achievement, slaying one's opponents, yet reality was grim. Zuko, said a worried Iroh staring at his broken nephew. There's no honor left for me, is there, uncle? Asked a broken teen as his tears fell down his cheeks. Zhao was right. If father wanted it, with or without the avatar, I would have been welcomed home. But, in his eyes I'm just a stain. Iroh couldn't help but touch his own chest at the sight of his nephew. Never had the old general seen his fiery, adopted son so fragile. There is no hope at all. No, Zuko. You must never give in to despair. Allow yourself to slip down that road and you surrender to your lowest instincts. The old general hugged his nephew for a couple of seconds before separating, but never letting go of the teen's shoulders. In the darkest times, hope is something that you give yourself. That is the meaning of inner strength. The teen stared at his uncle for several seconds before moving away. I'm tired, uncle, really, really. Tired. Sleep, said Iroh with a gentle, soft tone. I shall take guard duty tonight, and in the morning, when you wake up, you will see a better day. Chapter 72, Schemes. Waking up to the crackling sound of fire and wood, while slowly perceiving a sweet scent of what seemed to be an aromatic tea, Zuko slowly opened his eyes to reveal hollow, hopeless yellow irises. Still having nightmares? Asked Iroh, still working on his tea. Yeah. Answered Zuko, softly. The healing of the spirit, just like the healing of the body, cannot be rushed. Everything has its time to heal. Said the old wise general as he poured some tea and gently handed it to Zuko. But, that does not mean that we are helpless while waiting. He concluded by offering a smile. Yeah. Zuko nodded with a blank look while slowly drinking his tea. Iroh wanted to talk, but he couldn't think of anything that could bring Zuko back to his fiery, determined spirit. He could only sigh and shake his head while standing up. My cooking skills might not be as grand and renowned as my tea-making skills, but I shall double my effort. He said while doing a muscle stance. In the meanwhile, you can meditate if you wish. Iroh nodded and quickly left their cavernous home. Zuko's eyes were guided towards the crackling fire, but not even the brightness and warmth of a flame could bring light to his hollow eyes. It had been a harsh week for the duo. They had been living in a cave since the incident in the refugee camp. Luckily, they had resources to survive. Madara would never let Uncle Iroh and Zuko suffer any more than they already had in life. As the sun set on the horizon, Iroh made his way back from the nearest village, which was quite far away, with enough bags of food to last them a few days without any worry. As he walked near the cave, he saw his nephew sitting on the shore of a small river. In one hand he had his twin swords, while in the other he carried what looked like tattered black robes with red clouds. Even after so long, these two were two of his three most valuable remaining treasures. Iroh approached slowly as to not startle his beloved nephew, only to see him staring at his own reflection in the water. The banished prince obviously heard the sound of steps behind him, but he didn't move a muscle. He was so lost in his thoughts that even if the most amateurish assassin in the world tried to kill him right now, it would be an easy task. The old uncle simply sat beside his nephew, and accompanied him in his silence. As the sun hid further between the mountain peaks on the horizon, Zuko finally started talking. I had dreams about how things were before. Before all this. Before my banishment. Iroh kept silent but made sure that his presence and comfort could be felt by his nephew. My father never liked me. Did he? Zuko, that's not dash. Iroh tried to talk but Zuko raised his hand. I remember. He said while looking up. Ever since Azula's brilliance and talent was shown for the first time. Father decided to give up on me. Iroh could only close his eyes and clench his fists. I remember that I got so frustrated, so sad. That I started thinking that if I somehow started behaving like Azula, Father would like me like he liked her. A hint of a smile appeared on his lips. It is one of the fondest memories I have. The day that I tried to show Mother how Azula used to feed the turtle ducks that used to live in the palace's pond. I tossed fist-sized pieces of bread at one of them, just like I saw Azula doing many times. Mother disliked it. She chastised me. Iroh kept quiet, simply staring at his own reflection, alongside his nephews in the river. You were on the front lines back then. It was before you sent me this dagger as a gift. Zuko said as he pulled his third treasure from his robes and placed it between him and his uncle. She said. Never forget who you are, to me. Closing his eyes, the prince clenched his fist. Until this day. I still don't know who I am. He stared, for a moment, at each side of his face in the reflection. Am I the banished, criminal Zuko, or am I, the proud Crown Prince Zuko, son of Fire Lord Ozai and Ursa? For several minutes, only neutral sounds could be heard from the prince/uncle duo. You know, Prince Zuko, said Iroh, with his eyes seemingly glued to their reflections, the day that you came to me, asking to learn how to wield a weapon. I took it upon myself to decide which weapon would be most fitting for you. For days I thought it over and ended up deciding on the twin swords. Do you know why? Zuko shook his head as Iroh grabbed his swords and unsheathed them. In your first lesson you were taught that although they look like two separate swords, they actually are not. They are simply two sides of a single weapon. You can't have one without the other, otherwise it would be incomplete. The prince stared at the swords, as each blade reflected one side of his face. On one blade he saw his handsome side, while on the other blade he saw his burnt eye. The things that you've seen, and the experiences that you've had are what molded you into who and what you are right now. You can't remove the bad and only keep the good. Otherwise, you would be as incomplete as this sword without its pair. Iroh stared into his nephew's eyes as he sheathed the swords again, and who you are is not for anyone to decide, but you. Not me, not Azula and not even your father, you are you, Zuko. I don't understand, said a frustrated Zuko. Offering an understanding smile, Iroh patted his shoulder. There's no hurry, life is long and you will have plenty of time to find out. I can't tell you where the journey will end, but I can tell you that you will not be traveling alone. Uncle, Tears started flowing down Zuko's cheeks as Iroh simply hugged him. It's fine, everything will be fine, we will go through this together, only, mind the ramblings, and the requests of an old man to stop at a few tea shops in the middle. Zuko couldn't help but chuckle at that. Yes, we shall visit plenty, said the prince with a little bit of light back in his eyes. How is our development towards you, Dao? Asked Akam Madara while reading reports of the fall of Omashu and the appearance of Azula with her girl squad. Udao has been tough, Mr. Uchiha. Being the oldest colony, it has a good foundation which proves to be troublesome to exploit. They seem very self-sufficient with no weaknesses for us to take advantage of, said Nari while sitting on the other side of the desk. And what about this place? He pointed towards a small, almost imperceptible colony marked on the map. Earth and Fire Refinery? Nari asked with her raised eyebrows. That's just a small industrial site, Mr. Uchiha. Honestly, people there are not that happy considering the toxicity of the place. The natives there were originally from Udao, but left due to their economical situation. Udao didn't want street rats dirtying their ideal city. Over the last 10 years that town has been used as an independent industrial colony. The older woman said, already with all information needed recorded in her memory. Independent. Madara couldn't help but raise his own eyebrow. Who gave them the balls to call themselves independent industrial colony? Don't they know how angry the Fire Nation would be if they heard that? Not really. You see, the refinery is where autonomous inventors usually go to have a big break. According to our information, the Fire Nation lets the residents be free to pursue their aspirations, and when one of them comes up with an impressive creation, the Fire Nation offers them sponsorship and takes them to the capital, completely claiming ownership of said creation while still funding the successful subject forward. Sounds too expensive to keep running like that just for 1 or 2 decent inventors to pop up every year or two, Madara said with a frown. I thought that too, so we did a deeper inspection. It seems that Lao Bifong also invests in this place. Nari narrowed her eyes as, ex-boss or not, she was fully loyal to Madara. It seems that your airship was also built there. No wonder Lao Bifong could get his hands on it. He was one of the investors in the first place. Oh, the plot thickens, huh? Lao Bifong siding with both the Fire Nation and the Earth Kingdom. Sounds very interesting, doesn't it? With a nod, Nari said her own opinion. The Bifong family is one of the oldest recorded noble families. They have scrolls predating the era of Avatar Sito. He was a very politically inclined avatar and had many deals with the Bifongs from back then. It seems that the Fire Nation were in dire straits back then and Sito used his influence to get a good deal with the Earth Kingdom nobles. How ironic. Indeed, Sito's and Bifong's deals made the Fire Nation strong again, and also seemed to be the source of the current Bifong fortune. It seems that old ties remain and the Fire Nation still has a line of contact with the Bifongs, even if it's just for pure business's sake. Narrowing his eyes looking at the records presented by Nari, Madara spoke, I want a slice of that pie. Udao and the refinery are the key points for our future. I want the natives of the colonies to want us, no. To demand us to be their ruler, before the war ends. Mr. Uchiha, may I ask why? I know you are a driven man, you've built everything from nothing, but even till this day, your Oasis project remains dry, void of any profit. Are you sure you want to risk getting into the sights of the Fire Nation even more than before due to these 2 little colonies? 2 little colonies? Nari, you are a smart woman, the smartest that I know, but sometimes you underestimate things. Tell me, what do you think will happen when the war ends and Zuko takes the crown of the Fire Lord? Nari narrowed her eyes in deep thought. A fool would say peace, but it's not that easy. Peace doesn't happen just because the new head of the state has a different approach. There's 100 years of war looming behind them. Every single living person today was born during that war. They won't just forget about it and live in peace. I think a short time of peace will come, 6 months, maybe less, said Nari deep in thought. Then, on an international scale, the colonies will become the new battleground for an aftermath war. The Earth Kingdom will want their lands back. The Fire Nation will probably agree, but the people whose fathers and grandfathers were born in those colonies, who have a deep-rooted sense of belonging, they won't accept. They will fight back, and then a second war might start, on a smaller scale, yes, but a second war nonetheless. Zuko and, who cares about his name, the Earth King, will probably have to fight. The Firecracker is proud of his people, and won't let them hang when he sees that they really love their home. He would relinquish his rights to the colonies, but the Earth King and his bunch of nobles would try to take over and push the Fire Nation loyalists away anyway. Madara said with a tone of certainty, and then, there's the Avatar. A deep silence spread for a few seconds. The Avatar will get involved, it's his self-given job to do so. But that tattooed kid, he will side with the people, no doubts about that. He will try the best way he can think of to make a deal, and I put my money on the Avatar allowing these colonies to achieve independence, not subjected to the Earth Kingdom or the Fire Nation. A 5th nation, said Nari softly. And do you think that, even if that comes to pass, the Avatar would allow you to rule over it? Madara started chuckling, and then burst into a strong laugh that had a very evil feeling to it. Allow me? No. He would never, but what if he doesn't have the choice? What would the dear pacifist Avatar do when he sees every single person within the colonies, clamoring and calling for me by name to be their ruler? Madara's grin was fully evil. He will have no choice, his opinions will bear no weight. the people decide their ruler, and if the avatar goes against the people, how long until their people decide that they don't want or need an avatar anymore? Chapter 73, Toph. And now the moment you've all been waiting for. In an underground, dimly lit hall, a large rectangular arena was located in the middle. The arena had stairs running down to a lower, oval-shaped area. Seats for spectators started at the same level as the arena. Sitting among the crowd, Team Avatar seemed rather excited about what was going on. Well, at least one of them. "WOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOO champion. The Blind Bandit. As Xin Fu, the announcer, introduced the new fighter, the light seemed to focus on a single person. A short, black-haired girl with bangs covering her milky green eyes, almost half of her body was hidden behind a massive champion green belt as she raised the belt up above her head. She can't really be blind, said Katara, observing the small champion girl. It's just part of her character. Right. I think she is, said Aang, looking at her as if he had seen her before. I think she is, said Sokka with a deadpan face, before instantly shouting while gesturing down with both hands, going down. In the center of the arena, the boulder feels conflicted about fighting a young, blind girl. Sounds to me like you are scared, Boulder, said the blind girl mockingly as she pointed at her opponent. The boulder is over his conflicted feelings. And now he's ready to bury you in a rock-avalanche. Let's dance then. The pebble. The girl threw her head back and laughed. It's on, the boulder replied as he took one step forward. As his heel hit the ground, a smirk appeared on the blind girl's face as her opponent took a second step, but this time the blind girl suddenly kicked the arena surface, creating a shock wave through the arena floor that churned up the ground in the direction of the boulder in a straight line. Once the boulder felt his feet meeting the shock wave from the blind girl, he was forced down onto the ground in a perfect split. Exclaimed the poor boulder in pain as his crotch was forced to stretch in angles that were never attempted by him before. Grinning evilly, the blind girl stomped the ground with her other foot's heel, suddenly making a pillar of rock rise right below the boulder's crotch, which was only a few inches above the ground. Ooh, ah. This time it was not just the boulder. Every single male in the audience, including the announcer, shared the dread and closed their legs in reflex. Evil, shouted Sokka with a pale face while protecting his crotch with his hands. I don't understand why every single other man screamed like they were the ones in pain, said Katara in confusion. You don't understand men, Katara, said Sokka with a sage expression, we share pain. A lonely tear fell from one of his eyes as he stared at the horizon. Okay, said the young waterbender. Even Aang looked incredibly uncomfortable, though he tried to maintain his serene expression, but his crossed legs and trembling hands expressed his real thoughts. Back in the arena, Toph was satisfied with her performance considering the shouts she heard from both her target and the audience, so without further ado, she simply did a motion with her right hand, forming 3 pillars of earth that launched the boulder outside the arena. Aang, your winner, and still champion. The Blind Bandit, said Xin Fu, the muscular announcer with long dark hair. His legs were almost crossed, but one could see that he was using his entire willpower to remain serious and aloof towards the situation. How did she do that? Asked Katara in confusion. Again, the girl was supposed to be blind. Heartlessly, said Sokka, still protecting his crotch. She waited. And listened, said Aang, remembering what Bumi told him in Omashu. As Xin Fu jumped back towards the arena from his raised announcer platform, he shouted to the crowd, to make things a little more interesting, I'm offering up this sack of gold pieces to anyone who can defeat the Blind Bandit. For the first few seconds there was only silence, until Aang raised his hand, I will. Xin Fu looked disappointed for a moment, but nodded and accepted the challenge anyway. Go Aang. Avenge the boulder, shouted Sokka with passion in his voice. Feeling the newcomer walking into the arena platform, Toph smirked, do people really want to see 2 little girls fighting out here? Ooh. The audience was relentless. I don't really want to fight you. I want to talk to you, said the disguised avatar as he put his hands up in a conciliatory gesture. Boo. Shouted Sokka with a disgusted expression that was short-lived considering that Katara slapped him in the back of the head right away. Don't boo at him. Back in the arena, Aang could be seen gliding inches above the ground after dodging the first strike from Toph. Somebody's a little light on his feet. What's your fighting name? The Fancy Dancer, said a focused Toph as she concentrated on her earthbending skills. Now, where'd you go? Please, wait, shouted Aang as he finally touched the ground. Unfortunately for Aang, his move to throw Toph's rock back at her was met with an earth wall. Toph had been ambushed before, and although she never had fought an airbender before, she didn't just trust her earthbending, but also her other senses. As soon as the avatar touched the ground, Toph grinned, gotcha. Aang could only watch as one of his feet was swallowed by the arena. Let's see you dodge me now. Twinkle toes. She grinned as she pushed the earth wall she used as defense towards Aang with incredible speed, pushing him out of the arena. Yeehaw! Everyone shouted in excitement. And there we have it. The unmatched. The victorious. The blind bandit. Shouted Xin Fu while pocketing his bag of coins. Grabbing her champion belt back, Toph wore a huge smirk on her face as she simply escaped through the wall, thwarting any plans that Aang had about reaching out to her for a talk. After everything was over, Team Avatar went on an investigation tour through the city of Gaoling, first being the earthbending school, but no one seemed to know anything about the blind bandit. Finally, the team managed to get some clues due to Aang's dream about a white flying boar, the sigil of the Bifong family, which led them to their current situation. Lao and Poppy Bifong seemed happy as they stared at their guests. They heard about the Avatar coming for a visit and prepared a welcome feast for all of them. Avatar Aang. It's an honor to have you visit us, said Poppy with a happy smile on her face. In your opinion, how much longer do you think the war will last? Asked Lao with a friendly face, but his eyes were sharp and focused. I'd like to defeat the Fire Lord by the end of summer, but I can't do that without an earthbending teacher first. Aang said while staring at Toph, making her annoyed. Well, Master Yu is the finest teacher in the land. Lao said as he pointed towards the pompous, second-rate earthbending master that was having dinner with them. He's been teaching Toph since she was little. Then she must be a great earthbender. Probably good enough to teach someone else, said Aang with a beaming smile. Toph didn't like what he said, so she sent a fissure under the table at him. Ow! He shouted, as Lao cast an odd glance towards his daughter who merely ate her soup. Toph is still learning the basics, said Yu. And what about firebending? Have you already secured a teacher? Asked Lao while eating his meal. Well, I didn't think that far ahead, having to master earthbending first and all, said an uncomfortable Aang. He didn't like the idea that he needed to learn firebending at all. But we met one very strong firebender a while ago, who seemed friendly enough. If it comes down to it, I will request him to teach me, said Aang reluctantly. I don't think Madara will teach you, Aang. He said he would never teach his firebending to anyone, said Sokka offhandedly while using a toothpick. That single offhand comment raised the eyebrows of almost everyone in the room. Poppy's were twitching furiously. Lao's were sweating, a lot, as he stole quick glances towards his wife while pretending that everything was fine. Toph's almost reached her hairline as she had to hold herself back. She really wanted to trap Aang with her earthbending and ask him some questions right now. Yu, on the other hand, was clueless and simply looked at everyone's reactions then simply shrugged. Well. Shall we move to the living room for dessert, then? Said Poppy while controlling herself. Regardless of anything, she was a noble lady and would always follow the right protocol. Later that night, while everyone was already sleeping on the comfiest beds in the world, thanks to the Bifong's wealth, Aang was patting Appa outside, staring at the night sky. Good night, buddy. The Avatar said softly, staring at his sleepy flying bison. As he was about to leave, his path was blocked by Toph, who stared at him with a seriousness that she didn't have even when playing the blind bandit role. Aang just moved into a defensive position, expecting the worst. Relax. Look, I'm sorry about dinner. Let's call a truce, okay? Said the blind girl, which indeed made Aang let down his defensive position as the two of them headed out to the yard. Even though I was born blind, I've never had a problem seeing, said Toph as she walked along the side of the bridge and jumped down, hitting the ground. I see with earthbending, it's kind of like seeing with my feet. I feel vibrations in the earth, and I can see where everything is. You. That tree. Even those ants over there. That's amazing, shouted Aang in excitement. But my parents don't understand, they never did, and to be honest, they don't even know that I can do it. It's not even about me being good at hiding it, it's just that they are so sure that I'm helpless that they don't even pay attention. Is that why you became the blind bandit? Yeah. It's the only place where I can be myself, said Toph. Then why stay here where you're not happy? Asked Aang, confused. They're my parents. Where else am I supposed to go? You could come with us, said an excited Aang. Yeah. You guys get to go wherever you want. No one telling you what to do, that's the life. She said excitedly before getting downcast. It's just not my life. It can be your life is yours to go wherever you want, Aang said sagely. Chuckling, Toph shook her head. It's not that easy, twinkle toes. Things are expected of me. Then, what do you want? Taking a deep breath, Toph turned to Aang. You mentioned Madara. Yes. Aang was confused. Do you know him? Know him? He is my brother. What? Chapter 74, Running Away from Home. A blob of mud flew from the shores of the artificial lake underneath the bridge that they just crossed and instantly hit the Avatar straight on the head, making the poor bald boy fall on the ground like a sack of potatoes. Stop squealing. Toph frowned her eyebrows. If joining you means that I will have to deal with a squealing little girl, you better not even try to convince me anymore. Blurg, the poor Aang could only spit the mud that managed to enter his wide mouth while cleaning his face with his airbending. There were worms in there. Yeah. So what? Toph raised an eyebrow. When I was out practicing my earthbending I would spend a long time in the foggy swamp, and you don't even want to know what I had to eat to satisfy my hunger. A smug grin appeared on her lips. Ignoring the blind girl, Aang bent a little bit of water from the artificial river, washing his mouth with it before spitting at the ground. You really are a little girl, aren't you? Twinkle toes. Can we please stop this talk about me and go back to the talk that you are Madara's sister? Exclaimed Aang in exasperation. What's wrong? Her grin grew even more sarcastic as she removed her hair adornment, letting her long black hair flow down like a river. Can't see the resemblance. Aang's mouth went wide, but he covered it with his hands. He didn't want Toph sending more worm-filled mud balls into his mouth. And now that you look like that. Ha 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 ha. Toph started laughing. She even fell on the floor. Oh, I wish I could see just this one time. The look on your face must be priceless for you to sound stupid like that. After several seconds of laughing, the blind girl finally stopped. No, we are not blood related, but Madara is my big brother even if we don't share blood. He was the only one that ever accepted who I really am, always encouraged me, shared stories of his adventures across the world with me and never treated me like a helpless, powerless blind doll. Toph's tone became rather melancholic as she kept talking about her relationship with Madara, as if flashbacks started coming to her mind. It saddens me that I don't even know what he looks like. All I've heard were details from former employees that left the family estate and joined him years ago. They always told me that we indeed looked alike, especially our hair, although Madara's is more spiky. Wild. Like a long mane. Said Aang, raising one finger. Yeah. Whatever that means. The girl had a gentle smile on her lips. So, you don't know what I look like as well. And Katara? Sokka? Even the boulder? Nah, I know. Well as someone in my circumstances can, my senses can capture details, but he was gone before I fully mastered it, and never came back. Not that I could blame him, I've heard talks about him around here back then. Aang didn't know what to say, honestly. He didn't have a decent talk with Madara. They met after the Oasis attack, but the Avatar didn't really know how to bridge the gap between them, so back then he decided to just sit and watch Sokka bombard him with questions about training and fighting techniques. At the end of the day, Madara and Aang had very limited interaction. Well. Aang tried to break the silence. If you decide to come with us, we can go and meet up with him, he concluded with a beaming smile. Toph's lip trembled emotionally a bit, but she closed her eyes and took a deep breath. I will think about it, she said as she walked away, back towards her room. The Avatar stood there with a thoughtful expression as he watched Toph walk back alone. After she was gone he took a deep breath and decided to follow her example and sleep for the night. The next day came, and Aang finally understood what Toph said, about being treated like a waste. Wherever the blind girl went, she was surrounded by at least 10 people, 7 guards and 3 maids. Also, for some reason, he and his group were not allowed to meet with her for the whole duration of the day. It was only during the parting banquet that they shared a room, but even so, many more guards were around. So, I assume that after you leave, you will go back to searching for an earthbending teacher? Asked Lao, with a tired expression. The nightly talk with his wife wasn't pleasant at all. Damn it Madara, even after years you still do this to me. Aang just stole glances at Toph for a moment. He couldn't see her struggling, but for some reason he could feel it. But, not wanting to ignore the patriarch, he answered. Yes, we have a long journey ahead. Nodding, Lao concluded their dinner. I wish you good luck, Avatar Aang. As both him and Poppy stood up, Toph also did so, but contrary to their elegant movements, she did so abruptly. Mom, Dad. I wish to talk to you. Not now, Toph, it's already time for you to go to bed, said Lao, basically ignoring the girl's pleas. But as he was about to walk through the doorway, it was blocked by an earth wall, which shocked the couple and made them look back at an equally flabbergasted Master Yu, then at Toph, finally noticing her hand raised, signaling that it was her who did it. I'm tired of this. I am not a frail porcelain doll like you think I am. Master Yu immediately went to bend the earth back down, but for some reason the wall slightly trembled but didn't budge, making Toph smirk a little bit. I am strong, not even that pompous prick over there can outmatch my earthbending. She narrowed her eyes. I wish to teach the Avatar earthbending. Preposterous Toph. Shouted Lao, you are a weak, frail, blind girl, and my daughter. I won't allow you to travel around with these people, or anyone for that matter. You don't understand who I am. I love fighting, I love earthbending. I am really, really good at it. And I want to go out adventuring like Madara. She spoke, undoing her earth wall now that she got her parents' attention. Don't mention that name, shouted Poppy in anger. He almost destroyed our family. You have no idea how bad of an influence that boy was on you. I regret it. I regret that I allowed your father to keep him here. Allowed me. Lao's eyebrows twitched furiously. Toph. His voice lowered. It seems we gave you far too much freedom. From now on you will be guarded and cared for 24 hours a day. We are doing that for your own good, sweetie, added Poppy, with a soft tone. Toph could only sigh and lower her head as her father kicked the Avatar and his team out. Sorry. Goodbye, Aang. A single tear fell down her face as she too was escorted to her room. Entering her room, she could only sit down by her bed and hug her knees while tears kept flowing. For several minutes she sat there, with her head lowered, but eventually she raised her red puffy eyes that narrowed dangerously as she suddenly stood up. I'm tired of this. Stomping the ground, she opened a secret hole in her room's floor that had a few sacks of coins, her championship belt and her blind bandit clothes. Team Avatar could only follow the guards. Honestly, even if Aang wanted to help, this was a family issue, not an international calamity. He had no power here and he knew it. As Sokka was fixing Appa's saddle, he turned to Aang. Don't worry, Aang. We can always ask for the boulder to teach you, he said in excitement. The poor Avatar could only give an extremely forced smile. Yeah. We can search a bit further. Don't worry, we will find you a teacher. There are plenty of amazing earthbenders out there, said Katara while putting a hand on the bald boy's shoulder. Not like her, said Aang with a saddened expression. As the group was ready to leave, they heard a voice in the distance. Wait! Shouted Toph, running towards the group, donning her blind bandit clothes and carrying a satchel. Toph! What are you doing here? My dad changed his mind. He said I am free to travel the world, said the girl with a light smile on her face. Sokka and Katara exchanged knowing glances, before the elder brother turned to the blind girl and smirked at her. Well, we better get out of here before he changes his mind again. Good idea, said Toph. You're gonna be a great teacher, Toph, said Aang with a happy smile. You can bet that I will. I learned from the best. She grinned and for some reason Aang felt a nasty shiver run down his spine, speaking of which. She then turned her face towards her family estate and took a deep breath before removing her hair adornment and tossing it on the ground, letting her hair flow freely. Inside a minimalistic Japanese-styled room, with clean tatami floors and open shoji doors that led to a stone platform connected to a private koi pond, the sound of the bamboo scare and rustle of leaves is the only thing that could be heard. On top of the tatami floor laid Madara, facing down, with his torso exposed. And laying beside him was a fair-skinned woman with dark brown hair tied in a bun and bangs covering one half of her beautiful face. She had bright blue eyes and wore a black yukata with blue and purplish-blue roses artistically embroidered into it, with a blue sash around her thin waist. The woman was carrying a thin bamboo stick, and beside her she had a small box with many flasks of what looked to be different colors of ink and many other sticks just like the one that she was holding. We are almost done with our weekly session, Mr. Uchiha, said her soft calm voice, as she kept slowly piercing Madara's back with the bamboo needle. A painting of one blue and one red dragon coiling around a big Uchiha fan in a sea of flames could be seen being painted in Yakuza style, although not finished yet. Thank you, Hanya, he said as a soft towel was pressed to his back for several seconds before he sat up and adjusted his own black yukata. Shaking her head with a smile, don't mention it, at least you are not loud like Mr. Lei, he used to scream a lot back then. I remember, Madara chuckled. Even though his was way simpler, with only green. The woman could only chuckle, more colors does not equal more pain, Mr. Uchiha. Then it seems that he is still just as wimpy as he was back then, Madara shrugged. And just managed to mask it better. They both stood up and Hanya escorted him to the exit of her shop, and once they arrived, she bowed, thank you once more for giving me this opportunity, Mr. Uchiha. Stop that, woman, every week you thank me for it and honestly, it's not needed. You have talent for this kind of stuff and I would be glad to always keep you around here even if that was your one talent. Then let me thank you for not forcing me to be a healer just because I am a waterbender, she said with an emotional face. Being born with the gift of bending does not force one to go down that route, it opens a door, yes, but we all should be able to decide our path. Madara said offhandedly as he waved his hand and walked back towards his not-so-humble abode. As he was walking, enjoying the sight of his upgraded resort, Nari appeared out of nowhere, right beside him. Mr. Uchiha. Holy fucking shit, woman, shouted Madara as he got a jump scare, you need to seriously stop doing that. Nari tilted her head to the side with an innocent expression. Staring at his innocent-looking mother figure, Madara's eyebrow could only twitch a little bit before he calmed down by taking a deep breath. How can I help you today, Nari? We received what appears to be the first batch of Northern Water tribesmen that wish to live here. Yeah, ever since the siege fiasco, many water tribesmen wanted to move here. Not everyone in the north had a good life. It's a tough environment and the sources of food are also very scarce. They survive, yes, but some of them want more than to simply survive to live another day. That's interesting. But did that really deserve the scare? Well, you will be interested to know that we have a special guest now. Who? Madara raised an eyebrow, not very interested but simply playing the part. Princess Yu. Shit. Chapter 75, Crossroads. So, that's why I came here. Said a sheepish Yu. Massaging his forehead with an exhausted expression, Madara stared at the runaway princess. Let me see if I've got this right. You have been having nightmares ever since the siege ended, and because you felt like a helpless damsel in distress during the whole ordeal, you started seeking methods to actually do something about it. You nodded. Then, you decided to talk to your father, the chief, one of the most bull-headed traditionalists of your whole nation, Paku aside, but we don't talk about him, about actually breaking a sacred tradition, and he not only refused but also got incredibly irritated, because of course he did. You nodded again. Finally, you had the ingenious idea of dipping, because of course you did, and came all the way here to train under Kalia considering that you now view her like a new role model ever since she defended your homeland. Madara concluded by taking a breather, while watching you nodding again and again like a pig rooster. What did your father say about it? Please tell me your father is aware of this. Demanded an exasperated Madara while looking straight into the northern princess' eyes. One could see bags forming under his eyes already. Well, funny story, let's just say that he didn't say no to my idea, she said giving him a forced beaming smile. Mother Fu dash, Madara was about to shout, but was instantly slapped on the back of the head by his mother figure, Nari, who carried a sharpened gaze towards her beloved, adopted son. Don't use such crass words in front of a princess, Mr. Uchiha. Waving her small hands in a panicky state, you tried to mediate, please Miss Wulong, don't do that, Madara is the only one I know that would accept me in my circumstances, I am already bringing too much trouble just by being here, I don't want him being forced to behave differently, this is his home after all. Staring at the princess, Nari's gaze softened, you wouldn't be saying that if you had heard how this man has been behaving since he was a kid, princess, some of our employees have known him since he was 9 and let me tell you one thing. This man's words used to make sailors blush by that age already. But now he is the face of this town, he can't be seen behaving like the crass hooligan that he used to. Madara kept staring at Nari with a twitching eye, what am I supposed to say? Monkey feathers. Nari simply stared back at him, anything is better than your wide range of F-word usages, Mr. Uchiha. Madara kept staring at Nari for an awkward amount of time before simply turning away to walk back towards his home, the home where he could curse as much as he wanted, but one could hear him mumbling to himself. Damn royalty. Monkey feathers. Although the day didn't start that well for the first and only Uchiha in the world, as the day progressed and transitioned to a second and third day, Madara couldn't help but take a note from Iroha's book and that led to the current situation. Ah. Jasmine tea, what a wonderful addition to such a beautiful day, said a satisfied Madara, sitting on a reclining chair, drinking a wonderful blend of tea with some extra cookies while watching firsthand what was happening in the wide plaza in front of him. Mother Fuc dash, a squealy female voice could be heard. Princess. Don't curse, you are royalty, you need to keep decorum in any and all circumstances. Said Madara, interrupting the target of his political headaches. You could only stare at Madara as if she was about to murder him, but not before the huge, ice boulder that she was using all her might and skill to keep floating above her increased in size and weight. Ye better stop losing focus, princess, a happily evil Kalia smirked to the side, sitting on an ice block while drinking sake in one hand and bending the water with the other. Otherwise I will be forced to add an ice floor underneath ye feet to make sure ye keep paying attention. Gore. Was all that the princess could say. All right, ice floor it is. Kalia said cheerfully. Ah. Madara smacked his lips in satisfaction after enjoying a sip of his drink. It brings back good old memories. Poor you could only double her efforts and focus, staring down at the floor to help her concentrate, while listening to the evil maniacal laughs of the evilest couple she had ever met. On the other side of the Earth Kingdom, things were not as cheerful as they were at the Uchiha Resort. Yu's opinion about it being fully ignored, of course, as a small team of 4 children wearing different colored clothes that clearly displayed different origins, kept discussing things in front of an exhausted and sleepy flying bison. What? Shouted another squealy, incredibly high-pitched girl's voice. You hurt me. Shouted back an annoyed and pissed off girl. You are blaming me for this. Shouted a blind girl with long flowing black hair while wearing a beige and green tunic, standing on her bare feet as she faced a taller tanned girl wearing a blue tunic. The older girl made a come-on move with her hands after throwing her green sleeping bag to the side. Before any catfight could take place, a bald boy with an arrow tattoo on his head and dark bags under his eyes jumped in between them. No. No. She is not blaming you. He tried his best to give the blind girl a friendly smile. No, I'm blaming her, said Katara, from behind Aang. Toph, not willing to take any shit, grabbed Aang by his face and threw him to the side like he had no weight whatsoever and came face to face with her opponent, a pissed and tired Katara. The situation escalated so much that the blind girl decided to leave, and now the original trio stood beside a shedding Appa while Aang shouted to the skies. What did I just do? I can't believe I just yelled at my earthbending teacher. Sokka decided to keep to himself during the whole ordeal. He did try to stop Toph but it didn't work. It seemed that he did learn. Slowly, but he improved. Walking for several hours in silence, Toph finally sent something through her feet and made a fissure with her feet, aiming towards a big rock nearby. Ow. An old voice could be heard. That really hurt my tailbone. Stepping closer, Toph noticed that her earth sense only captured this one person in the vicinity, so obviously it wasn't an ambush. Who are you? Just an old man looking for the perfect tea leaves in the vicinity. Have you seen a white flower with luscious green edges? Toph just deadpanned and pointed to her own eyes. Oh. I apologize, are you alone here? Yes, now I am. Why don't you accompany this old man and have some good tea, then? There's no bad day that can't be improved with the right tea. Toph kept staring at the men. Her sense could tell her the person she was talking to was a genuine good person, no lies detected. Sure. Why not? As the duo of old and young reached a steadily built camp near the road around a mountain, not that far away from where they met, the old Iroh went straight to his teapot and started preparing it, all while humming a joyous song that he heard from the resort the last time he was there. The old man liked music as well, it seemed. As they sat down by the campfire, Iroh handed Toph her cup after filling it. Here is your tea. You seem a little too young to be traveling alone. You seem a little too old, Toph replied after taking the teacup. Iroh laughed joyfully. Perhaps I am. I know what you're thinking. I look like I can't handle being by myself. I wasn't thinking that. You wouldn't even let me pour my own cup of tea. I poured your tea because I wanted to, and for no other reason, said Iroh while giving Toph a grandfatherly smile. Sadly she couldn't see it. People see me and think I'm weak. They want to take care of me, but I can take care of myself, by myself. Iroh took a sip from his own teacup and then replied with a more serious tone. You sound like my nephew, always thinking you need to do things on your own, without anyone's support. There is nothing wrong with letting the people who love you help you. Not that I love you, I just met you, the old general added with an awkward tone. Toph on the other hand simply laughed. So, where is your nephew? The old general caressed his long gray beard while showing a thinking expression. He should have been back by now. He went out hunting for food. Uncle, look what I got, said a mildly excited Zuko as he showed up with a couple of dead raccoon crows that were as big as his torso. Oh. It seems we have company. Iroh simply smiled, but he was very happy deep inside. His nephew seemed to get over that trance that took over him for a while, and ever since that one night when he was suffering from a fever, the young banished prince woke up the next day with energy and his eyes were finally filled with life again. Oh yes, this is a fellow traveler. We met while I was out looking for those tea leaves that I told you about. The possibly poisonous ones. No, the possibly delicious ones. Zuko could only sigh, but their light banter made Toph laugh. It must be nice to have a family that supports you. Zuko simply went to prepare the meat, starting with the whole defeat herring process, while Iroh kept Toph company. You sound as if you are speaking from experience. Iroh's voice carried a sad tone. Issues always arise when we start on a new path in life. Things are never as simple as we expect them to be, but if we push through the barriers on our path, we always end up discovering new experiences that help us grow, Iroh said while sneakily looking towards Zuko, and through said growth, we discover who we truly are. Toph lowered her head a little bit as if contemplating the old man's words. You know, my older brother said something similar to me, just less wisely. Iroh laughed. He was the only one that supported me, but he was kicked out, Toph said with a saddened expression, but those words quickly attracted Zuko's attention. Is that so? Did he do something bad? The old general asked while, again, stealing glances at his nephew who suddenly grew interested in the conversation. Toph shook her head. No, he did what he believed was right. It's just that, my father didn't see it that way and kicked him out. Zuko couldn't help but hold his chest at those words, many expressions shifting on his face. And what happened to him? He asked with an almost pleading voice, introducing himself into the conversation. Facing up, not that Toph could see the sky but she could feel the wind gently touching her face, she said, he is doing good from what I've heard. At the end of the day, he proved that he didn't need my father to be successful. He earned it all by himself with his own hands. It is what the old man over there said. Life threw him a wall and he just blasted his way through it, and now he is living more than well and is happy. I just wish I could meet him again. I see, were the only words that an emotional Zuko could say. We will meet again. Toph turned a bit excited, and when we meet, I plan on beating the shit out of him for leaving me behind all of these years. She concluded by punching her empty palm in front of her chest. I believe he would be happy to see you, said Zuko, offering her a smile. Thank you for the talk, and the tea was great, said Toph as she stood up. Old man, you are lucky to have a good nephew to keep you in check. Don't go wandering around like that, not everyone is as kind-hearted as I am. Iroh chuckled, noted, I shall be escorted by my beloved nephew here the next time I decide to go tea leaf hunting. Sorry for taking up your time, I shall go back to my friends now. I know they need me. It was a pleasure. Sharing tea with a fascinating stranger is one of life's true delights. Hopefully we can meet again sometime, concluded Toph before jumping away from their location and using her earthbending to speed through her journey back. What an interesting earthbender, isn't she, Prince Zuko? She reminds me of Teacher, they look similar, said Zuko, staring at the fading girl's long black hair. Do you think that her older brother also resembles Teacher? Iroh shrugged, who knows, perhaps. His smile got wider as he watched Zuko's reaction to their newest acquaintance. Zuko kept staring at the horizon with many things running through his thoughts. Chapter 76, Shift in Fate. The sun was slowly setting on the horizon and the few buildings that were tall enough were casting a shadow over what seemed to be a ghost town in the middle of an arid environment in the central part of the Great Earth Kingdom. Two people in cloaks could be seen walking through the entrance, and they both couldn't help but look left and right, searching for a single living soul and not finding any. Are you sure this town has supplies, Uncle? That's what they told me in the last village I went to, but it seems something or someone arrived before us, said a serious Iroh while narrowing his eyes. What are you talking about? Zuko was interrupted by what looked like a blue fireball aiming upwards, towards the sky, from somewhere in the town. That's. The banished prince narrowed his eyes and dashed towards the general direction. Zuko. Wait. Iroh tried to stop him but it was in vain. Running through the deserted streets, jumping through obstacles with the help of his acrobatic skills, Zuko finally arrived at what seemed to be a house in flames. He wouldn't have tried to enter it if he didn't see the silhouette of a very distinct individual that he met not long ago, although for him it already felt like years had passed. Lowering his body just like his teacher taught him, he nimbly dashed forward, doing his utmost best to not make loud noises, for he knew his target was not so easily deceived. The closer he got, the harder it would be to continue stealthily, so when he deemed himself close enough, Zuko jumped while doing a spin kick. Intense flames igniting under his heels as a semicircular wave of fire managed to strike his opponent, sending her towards the brittle walls that offered no resistance and broke due to the impact. The one person trapped under the debris of what looked like a collapsed roof couldn't help but exclaim. Zuko. Staring at the boy in front of him, with the familiar blue arrow tattoo on his bald head, filled Zuko with many urges. Urges to strike him, urges to continue on the path he has been on for years, but today. Today was different, his target wasn't the Avatar. Not waiting a single second, Zuko jumped to the side. He was fast enough to dodge a nasty well-aimed blue fireball that came out of his sister, his target's 2 fingers. Ah. Zuzu, I was wondering where you've been, said a slightly disheveled Azula. Zuko's sneak attack was actually effective and if she didn't sense an intense heat coming from the doorway, she would have been way worse. The back of her robes now sported a burnt, scorched mark that made her incredibly furious, not that she would display it. Zuzu. Aang asked while holding back his laugh. He knew this was a serious situation but even that wasn't enough to tone down his easygoing, light-hearted self. Now you know, said Zuko as he ignited 2 flame daggers in a reverse grip and rushed towards Azula. The Fire Princess, seeing her brothers move, did the same, igniting 2 blue flame daggers as she also rushed forward. On the deserted streets of the ghost town, 2 people faced one another, striking fiercely and with precision, trying their best to defeat their opponent. It seems you did improve, just a little bit, said Azula while kicking her brother's ribs after a parry with her flame daggers. Ugh. Zuko groaned as he staggered a bit, but then he stomped the floor sending a small wave towards Azula's path, forcing her to jump sideways and interrupting her advantage. Azula was about to strike again, but she saw not only the Avatar coming, but his teammates, Sokka and Katara as well. Lowering her stance, she was about to run away but the earth under her feet shifted abruptly and she was forced prone on the ground. I thought you guys could use a little help, said a snarky blind girl with long loose black hair. Thanks, Katara said with a smirk as the team and Zuko joined hands to push Azula back. Knowing that she was in a disadvantageous situation, Azula slowly moved back until she was close enough to rush through one of the back alleys. Her goal was to separate her enemies and catch them one by one. Unfortunately, her path was blocked by Iroh, who bumped into her and forced her to stop in her tracks. Being surrounded by everyone, Azula was finally backed into a corner. This was tougher than she expected. Honestly, Zuko's skills had shocked her. She was not expecting him to be this good. She gave up on her armor to travel light and it seemed as if that was a misjudgment of hers. Raising her hand, she took a deep breath and a few extra bangs fell in front of her eyes, as her tunic and hair were not so perfect anymore. Well. Look at this, enemies and traitors, all working together, she said while scanning everyone. She then raised her arms in surrender. I'm done, I know when I am beaten. You've gotten me, a princess surrenders with honor. Zuko and Iroh were also shocked to see their newest acquaintance, the blind girl, so soon and in such circumstances, but they knew they had more pressing matters right now and focused on. Unfortunately, that was enough of a distraction for Azula to use as an advantage. She did a spin while lowering her stance, aiming 2 fingers towards her target. Even in such a small window, she had decided whom she wanted to strike. Although her brother was becoming annoying, it was her uncle that was the serious threat here. Zuko would be destroyed without Iroh and she knew it, so with a single smirk she launched a very concentrated, precise and deadly jet of blue flames ignited from her fingertips towards the old general, hitting him in the side of his chest. Arf! The old man expressed his pain as he fell on the floor. Zuko's eyes went wide for a second and with determination and anger he used all his power and aimed the strongest fire blast he could towards his sister. This was the first time he actually attacked her with the aim of killing. Toph, Aang, Katara, and Sokka also joined in the attack, but Azula created a barrier of blue flames around her that exploded once all their attacks joined, sending everyone backwards and creating a cover of thick blackened smoke that aided Azula's retreat. As everyone recovered and the smoke dispersed, Azula was long gone, and Zuko could be seen kneeling in front of his heavily injured uncle. Anger, resentment, fear and regret all merged into one single expression on his face. Get away from us, he said while turning his face towards the team avatar, but when he spotted Toph he stopped for a bit, closing his eyes and clenching his teeth hard. Toph looked distressed. Not only did she recognize Zuko's voice, but she also recognized their presence through her earth senses. Zuko, I can help, said Katara as she approached. She had her fair share of complaints about Zuko but today they were on the same side. She wasn't that petty, she knew Iroh was a good man. I. Zuko didn't know how to react. His thought was to shout at them, telling them to leave them alone, but then he looked at Toph. He didn't know anymore. A mixture of emotions was destroying his rationale from within. Let her help, Zuko, said Toph, stepping forward and trying her best as well. Staying there in silence for a couple seconds, many different emotions shifted across Zuko's face, and then he did the only thing he could at the moment. He nodded with his head low. Katara nodded back and took the water from her canteen and crouched on the other side of Iroh and started using her waterbending to heal the old general. Aang and Sokka decided to not interfere. They noticed that the situation was incredibly unstable and anything could ignite the beginning of a new fight. He will be fine, said a tired Katara as she kept healing Iroh. He wasn't hit in any vital area, it was between the chest and the shoulder. Zuko simply nodded again, his eyes refusing to leave his unconscious uncle. After what seemed like hours, but in reality, were only a few minutes, Katara retrieved her water and stood up with beads of sweat forming on her forehead as her vision started getting blurry. Sokka approached and held her firmly, and Aang also decided to help. Zuko simply stood there, ignoring the avatar that was so close, tired and basically offering himself for capture. The prince could see their situation. They were hungry, exhausted, sleepy, far from the optimal situation to escape him. The bout with Azula made them even worse. But today. You should leave, we will be fine on our own now, Zuko said while staring at his uncle. Sokka and Aang exchanged gobsmacked glances. Katara gave an exhausted smile and Toph nodded, approached him and gave a light punch on the back of his shoulder. The old man will be fine, Katara is good with that stuff, the blind girl said, surprising Team Avatar with how close she seemed to the nephew-uncle pair, but also surprising Zuko with the certainty in the blind girl's voice. He nodded, stood up and offered them one of the bags he and his uncle were carrying. Aang looked confused, Sokka was suspicious and Katara was too tired to even react. Take it, there's enough food for a day, he said. Why are you helping us? Aang couldn't help but ask. You have been chasing us since the beginning, Sokka added, his eyes narrowed. Zuko simply stared at them and said. You healed my uncle, without him. He couldn't even express it with words, but taking a deep breath and staring at Toph he added, I was taught to return favors and I refuse to receive any help for free. Beyond that, I'm trying to blast through a wall. The group was confused, but Toph grinned at Zuko and even gave him a thumbs up. Katara also seemed very relieved and even happy with this turn of events. Team Avatar didn't stay for long, they grabbed the bag that Zuko offered and ran away. Aang couldn't help but look back towards the banished prince as they sprinted through the arid plains. Once they were almost out of sight, a bit of the confusion that the Avatar still had was cleared and he smiled. The day slowly passed, the sun was once again setting on the horizon as Iroh finally managed to open his eyes. Uncle, said a concerned Zuko. You were unconscious, Azula did this to you. It was a surprise attack. Slowly moving himself to rest his back against a half-destroyed wall of the house they were using as temporary shelter, Iroh commented with a bit of humor, somehow, that's not so surprising. Offering a teacup to his uncle, Zuko continued to speak in a soft tone, I hope I made it the way you like. Taking a sip, Iroh took a pause. Yeah, that was. Good, it's very bracing, said Iroh with a forced smile before throwing the rest of it away once he saw Zuko shifting his focus to filling his own cup. I've been thinking. It's only a matter of time before I meet Azula again, said Zuko while staring at Iroh's eyes. I will need to know more advanced firebending if I want to stand a chance against her. Even with my physical prowess I can't fully cover the gap. I hate to admit it, but Azula, she is a prodigy, said Iroh with a calm and serene voice, but that term struck a nerve in Zuko. He even frowned and grinded his teeth. You need to acknowledge things how they are, you can't escape from reality, and if you wish to grow strong, you cannot be shackled by illusions, Iroh said, in which Zuko could only nod. I know, she is better than me. But that only means that I have to work twice as hard, said the banished prince with determination. Iroh was half satisfied and half disappointed, satisfied because Zuko finally admitted something that years ago he would never have done, not out loud, disappointed because Zuko tunnel-visioned on Azula and didn't notice that his advice was not limited to Azula alone. Very well. It is time for you to resume your training. Chapter 77, Traveling. Hurry up, or we will leave you behind, shouted an annoyed Madara outside a small but luxurious house within the resort, recently built but following the exact same aesthetics of the whole place, including the red curved Asian roofs with golden assets, a very traditional yet fancy Japanese-inspired place. Just one more minute. These new robes are hard to put on, shouted a girl from within the place, also annoyed at being rushed. What's hard about it? It's a robe, pants, and a sash to tie around your waist, shouted Madara back. If we compare, it's way easier to dress than your northern water tribe stuff. Nuh, exclaimed a white-haired girl, poking her head out of her window to show Madara her displeasure. Turning around to his already gathered team, Madara could only sigh, great. Now we have to deal with a spoiled brat, things were way easier before. He was met with 3 Saitama faces from Nari, Lei, and Kalia, who stared at him. What? Ye always take forever as well, boss, said Kalia. Yup. I agree with the brute, added Lei. Mr. Uchiha, I also think you put too much effort into your looks, completed Nari. Madara stared at them awkwardly for a while. There's nothing wrong with having style. Ye have at least 100 different robes, boss. Ye forget that I sleep there too. I've seen ye thinking out loud about which one would look better on ye for the day. Kalia replied, doing the quotation motion with her fingers. I am allowed to have my comfort, pouted Madara while crossing his arms in front of his chest. Yes, of course you are, said Nari with a motherly tone that would be sweet if it wasn't for Lei giving a smug, annoying grin alongside it. Stop treating me like I'm a kid, damn it, and Jackie, you better wipe that smugness off of your face or I will do it for you. You know what? Come here, you little bastard, I've been without a good punching bag for a while, exclaimed Madara with an annoyed face, cracking his knuckles as he approached his administrator. Mr. Uchiha, I don't think we have time for that, look, said an already sweating Lei, while pointing towards the house door. Looking back, Madara could see you dressed in a black and blue yukata, with a white sash around her waist, and tabi socks and sandals. She also had a blue haori on her shoulders with the white sigil of the water tribe on her back. Finally, said Madara, allowing Lei to breathe in relief, not that it escaped Kalia's sight, which annoyed the man like crazy. Even after years he couldn't endure the girl's smug grin. So, how do I look? Asked you to everyone around, while twirling around with an excited expression. You look all right, said Kalia, not very interested. You look marvelous, princess. Those robes really match your beauty, said Nari with a smile. Jackie simply nodded and Madara only said, you look ready. Now come, let's go, with a deadpan face. As they moved towards the airship platform, the group encountered she as well. She would be going with them since she was a bit bored of staying there with nothing to do, though she had her own job working as security in the casino. Why did she work? Because she liked things that cost money, of course. Madara wouldn't be sustaining her, screw that. If she wants nice stuff, she's gotta work for it, that's like, rule number 1 of life. Hello there, lord, said she while bowing her head. She was wearing her black yukata, with a red sash and red haori, but on her back there was a yellow sun sigil. Sorry for the delay, some of us took their time, said Madara while casting a glance over his shoulder towards the runaway princess. Yeah. Some of us, said Nari, Kalia, and Lei while staring at Madara's back. Coughing to dispel the awkwardness, she decided to move on with the conversation. It's not a big deal, I've been excited to see new places. I still can't believe we will be going to Ba Sing Se. I've been curious about it since you described it to me that day. The Sun Warrior girl was very happy about seeing new places, as it was her dream since a young age to explore, and now after staying at the resort for quite a while, which she didn't complain about, considering how amazing this place was to her, she could finally go somewhere else. As their group moved forward, she decided to strike a conversation with you. They didn't talk much considering how busy the princess was with her training schedule while she herself was also quite busy with her job. Princess Yu. Nice to see you again, I didn't know you would be coming with us. I'm glad you are, I hate being the third wheel with these four. She said while pointing to the two couples walking alongside them. You chuckled and shook her head. Not even I knew I would be forced to join, she. Honestly, I wish I was as excited as you to go to the Earth Kingdom's capital. Like hell I would increase the level of my political headache by leaving you behind unsupervised, said Madara with an annoyed tone. I'm not a kid. You argued back. Sure. If you say so. Madara replied with a sarcastic tone. You stomped her foot and pouted, which prompted the others to laugh. Don't laugh. She said as red started to appear on her cheeks. After they entered the airship and everyone took their seat on one of the many comfortable couches, she couldn't help but ask. How long will it take for us to reach the capital, Lord? Considering the new engine that our people managed to smuggle out of the refinery. I would say 10 hours. Maybe more, maybe less. Said Madara while thinking for a bit, already opening a bottle of sake for him and Kalia. That's fast. Said you in awe, it took me a week on the ship to reach your resort. Nari chuckled and explained. Well, the airship was already fast when it was just a prototype ship, but it seems that they had a breakthrough not long ago and are now producing new engines, but even with the old engine, it would take a day and a half at most to reach there through the sky. She was surprised, that much improvement. Damn, and this thing doesn't even need bending. If things continue like that, non-benders will soon overtake us. She laughed as if it was a good joke, to which Kalia and even you laughed and considered it a preposterous idea. Not that they looked down on non-benders, but for thousands of years the world was centered around bending the elements. They would never consider the idea of bending taking a step back and even falling into the background due to the advancement of technology. Nari and Madara, on the other hand, stared at each other sneakily. They knew better. What the girls were assuming to be a joke would prove to be true. Madara knew this due to his knowledge of Korra, and Nari due to her own intelligence. As Lei piloted the airship through the skies eastward, the group enjoyed their time with food and drinks. Of course, you wouldn't be allowed to drink alcohol, and she would need to be happy with her fruit juice as there was no way in hell that Madara would want to deal with even more headache. Kalia and she were already enough. So, since we have quite a few hours to go, how about a round of mahjong, proposed Madara. Sure. Yeah, why not? Never played, but it would be fun to learn. Mr. Uchiha, mahjong can only have 4 players, said Nari, staring at her boss/son. Both Kalia and Madara stared at her. Oh my, how rude of my own family casting me aside like that, Nari said while shedding fake tears. Screw ye catgator tears, Nari, whenever ye play. Ye always win. Kalia exclaimed. I agree with her, and don't give me that look, Nari, it's not fun playing knowing we will lose, you know. Said an exasperated Madara. Nari could only sigh. All right, I will go prepare some snacks for us while you play. Alright, mahjong time. While Madara's entourage was enjoying their time on their airship by drinking, playing games, eating the best foods and wearing the comfiest clothes, things weren't so happy for another group of misfits. In a rocky canyon, a duo of brother and sister were staring worriedly at a sleeping bald boy with a blue arrow tattoo. The reason why they were worried was the sheer amount of bruises all over the poor avatar's body. He's not waking up, said a worried Katara. He's just tired, believe me, I know what it's like to be forced through a harsh training, replied a sweating Sokka, remembering his time with the Kyoshi warriors. But it's been over 10 hours. He's breathing, don't worry. As they were discussing Aang, a yawning Toph entered the tent while munching on what looked like bread. Good morning, team. Ready for day 2? Asked the excited blind girl. Toph. I think you went too hard on him, said Katara with a worried face, but for some reason, deep inside her heart, she felt catharsis. It was like all her negativity towards how easily Aang got used to waterbending was washed away. It felt good. Not that she would ever admit it. Nah, he will do just fine. Check this out, Toph said as she approached the sleeping avatar and shouted. Rock slide. Shouted Aang, instantly waking up and doing a backflip while covering himself with earth armor midair. Once he landed, he protected his face and chest with both of his arms and prepared himself for impact. See. He is up and ready, said a smug Toph, much to Katara's dismay, and a bit of happiness. Shush, Aang deserves it. A little bit. Finally noticing what happened, Aang retreated from his defensive stance and stared at his team. What's going on? Time for day 2, Twinkle Toes, said Toph with a sinister smirk while she cracked her knuckles. Gulp, Aang started sweating. See, can we do it after breakfast, at least? Don't worry, I will feed you enough rocks to satisfy your hunger, now. Horse stance. Toph shouted as she launched a fissure through the earth that suddenly turned into a pillar, hitting Aang's chest and sending him flying out of the tent. Sigh. This is already the second tent, said Sokka a bit tearfully. It's just a tent, Sokka, said Toph. Yeah. But because we had to get this. I couldn't even get the bag that I was eyeing. Don't worry, we will get your purse some other time, replied a smirking Katara. It's not a purse, it's a traveler's all-purpose bag, shouted Sokka. All right, you ladies stay here talking, I have to teach the little girl over there how to earthbend properly, said Toph while launching herself after Aang. All right. I'm not a lady. One can guess who said what. Chapter 78, Ba Sing Se. As the black-colored airship approached the massive walls of Ba Sing Se, the small group within could already see the sprawling city on the horizon. I can't believe people could build such a thing, shouted she in excitement, almost jumping from one side to the other while trying her best to memorize every single detail. This is absurd. You also was gawking at the view, she lived in a capital and knew how large they were, but this is on another level. It is indeed something, said Madara nonchalantly while grinning, but to Nari who was observant, she could see a certain fierceness in his onyx-colored eyes. Mr. Uchiha. We are piloting all the way in, I am sure that they already know the airship in our mansion is large enough to house and protect it, don't worry Nari, Madara said with a confident tone. Nari on the other hand shook her head, it's not the airship that I am worried about. Madara stood in silence while observing the city below. Look at that. It must be the transport that Lord Madara talked about. She continued with her fangirling while watching the stone rails that cut through the capital. All right girls, get ready, Madara interrupted them as he walked towards Kalia, who also was very nonchalant about the whole thing. After we land, we will eat and sleep early, in the morning you and Jackie are coming with me, we have a meeting to attend tomorrow. Yeah, sure thing boss, replied the waterbender while enjoying her expensive sake. Although the crew was enjoying the view from above, they could clearly see the disparity of the three rings that formed the massive capital. The lower ring, being home to the poorer classes of the society, made up almost half of the size of the city. It obviously didn't house only the poor, but also newcomers and a multitude of refugees. Ironically, the lower ring is also where the biggest market in the Earth Kingdom was located. Since it was not cheap to get permits to the other rings, most merchants decided to settle here. The profit wasn't bad, and honestly, most merchants didn't have goods of enough quality to warrant the cost of going to the middle ring. The middle ring was considerably more well put together than the lower one. Houses here were made of bricks, with green and yellow-colored roof tiles, and many man-made canals cut through this area of the city, adding a more refined upscale lifestyle feeling, with many bridges and greenery. Here the businesses were located in shops and specialized houses. Unlike the open outdoor market of the lower ring, everything here screamed slightly affluent middle-class life, from the clothes to the buildings, a comfortable place to live and the dream of many lower ring residents. Then there's the upper ring, the richest area of the capital, consisting of a mere 10% of the whole land. Tall luxurious manors with massive yards, their own stables, and even extra housing for houseworkers. Since the upper echelon of the city didn't allow the rabble to cross to this area, it was impossible to enter here unless you were already someone. As Madara already was one of the richest men in the world at this point, he obviously had his own humble abode, located on the upper ring, on a tall hill that could overlook the whole district, his very own pond, and an empty space for his airship, considering that he already planned ahead of time for this situation. Ironically, his closest neighbor was the Bifong Manor, only 30 minutes away. It's totally a coincidence, and no one can prove that Madara did it just to piss off Poppy Bifong. No sir. As for other people that lived here, rich, entitled, pompous, military and government, and more often than not, all of the above. As the airship finally landed and they could see the massive manor with a huge Uchiha fan symbol etched on the gates, the group was received by an already prepared group of servants, members of Onawaban of course. Welcome to Ba Sing Se, Lord Uchiha. All of them said simultaneously while being properly aligned before bowing in perfect coordination. Madara simply nodded and signaled for his team to follow him. The first time this happened, he had a talk about it with Nari. It was years ago now and he was very uncomfortable about it, but that woman, she had in her mind that he was akin to royalty and refused to change the training of their personnel. As the group walked towards the manor, she and you started squealing about a herd of fox antelopes that lived within Madara's lands. They couldn't hold back and started chasing and playing with them while Madara could only sigh and shake his head. Kids. Kalia was already in her own dimension and didn't pay much attention, but Jackie and Nari couldn't help but chuckle. They too owned a large house in Ba Sing Se, but on the middle ring, very close to the upper ring wall. It was quite luxurious for a middle ring house, but they rarely ever visited there, only when they went off on their own trip as a couple. If they came with Madara, they would always stay in the upper ring with him. How soft and cute, squealed Yu as she held a fox antelope fawn within her arms, petting it like it was some sort of house pet. Right, replied she while petting the grown-up ones, which already had gotten used to humans at this point after so many years of living here and being fed by Madara's people. If that wasn't annoying enough, they also freaked out about a colony of cats that lived in the manor, all fluffy and very chunky at this point. They didn't even react when the girls grabbed them and played with them for a whole hour. With that, Madara decided against telling them about the other animals that resided within his lands: fire ferrets, llama pacas, turtle ducks, and even a couple of very friendly but a bit old tiger dillos and their cubs. Look. He is an animal lover, okay. It was already sunset when the group finally entered the dinner room, which was already properly set and displayed a massive feast with all the most delicious barbecue one could possibly want. Animal lover isn't equal to vegetarian, okay. They don't butcher the animals that live in the land, they buy stuff from the market. After an amazing feast, the group decided to go to sleep. Only 4 rooms were prepared, of course, one for Shi, one for Yu, one for Jackie and Nari, and the master bedroom for Madara and Kalia. The dawn finally approached and Madara woke up in a great mood. It was legit the first time he and Kalia actually had sex in this mansion, and there was no holding back. What a great day! Madara said while looking out the window, the gentle breeze, the sun rising casting a shade of red on the horizon. Today will be a great day. As he got dressed with his kimono and Haori, he walked towards the entry room and was immediately caught off guard by the presence of one of his guards escorting a tall woman with black hair and a huge creepy smile. "My lord, this is an envoy that was sent by the Earth King to welcome you to Ba Sing Se," the guard said while bowing. The woman displayed an excited face and bowed as well. "Hello, my name is Ju Di. I have been given the greatest honor of welcoming Lord Madara Uchiha to Ba Sing Se. On behalf of our king, I welcome you to our wonderful city." Madara's eyebrows trembled a bit. "You gotta be fucking kidding me." On top of a hill, a duo of firebenders could be seen drinking tea while facing each other, one old and short, one young and tall, both wearing worn-out clothes with faded colors. Lightning is a pure expression of firebending, without aggression. It is not fueled by rage or emotion the way other firebending is. Some call lightning the cold-blooded fire. It is precise and deadly, like Azula. To perform the technique requires peace of mind, said a short and well-built old man, eyeing a tall teenager with short black hair and one scorched eye who was sitting right across from him. "I see. That's why we are drinking tea, to calm the mind," said the teenager with a sagely nod while enjoying his own cup of tea. Raising an eyebrow, the old man replied, "Oh yeah, good point. I mean, yes." His face became sage-like and he even added a nod. "There is energy all around us. The energy is both yin and yang. Positive energy and negative energy. Only a select few firebenders can separate these energies. This creates an imbalance since the energy will always seek to restore balance, and in the moment that positive and negative come crashing back together, you provide release and guidance, creating lightning." The old general stood up and walked a few steps before extending 2 fingers from each hand, slowly doing circular movements, and the young prince could see lightning crackling on each hand. When they connected, he saw his uncle simply pointing forward and unleashing a loud forked lightning that traveled far. "I'm ready to try it," said Zuko. Iroh nodded and gave a few words of wisdom. "Remember, once you separate the energy, you do not command it. You are simply its humble guide. Breathe first." Zuko took a deep breath, slowly imitating Iroh's form and posture. Unfortunately, instead of lightning, a loud explosion launched him back and Iroh shook his head in disappointment. A few hours went by and after seeing that he had made no progress, Zuko couldn't help but ask, "Why can't I do it? Instead of lightning, it keeps exploding in my face, like everything always does." "I was afraid this might happen," said the old wise general. "You will not be able to master lightning until you have dealt with the turmoil inside yourself." "What turmoil?" "Zuko, you must let go of your feelings of shame if you want your anger to go away." "But I don't feel any shame at all. I am as proud as ever." "Prince Zuko, pride is not the opposite of shame, but its source. True humility is the only antidote to shame." That made the prince stop. "Source of shame and humility, huh?" Zuko kept staring at the skies, remembering a few words from his teacher. Once upon a time, he wasn't very friendly, and decided to show Madara that he was good enough to learn more than just physical exercises from him. He still has nightmares about that day, but that day Madara gave him a piece of his mind and he still remembers the words, "Feeling proud, aren't ya? A firebending kid that believes himself to be tough. Let me help you erase that pride from your soul. You want to be treated like a big man? Fine, I will treat you like a big man, and then you will cry like a little baby." That day he was humbled so hard that he would never dare to ignite a flame in front of Madara ever again. He still remembers that feeling that he was nothing, that his journey didn't matter, that his own talents and strengths were irrelevant. That day he learned a very important lesson, according to his uncle and teacher of course. That feeling of being nothing. Taking a deep breath and doing his best to reenact said feeling, he repeated the moments of lightning generation one more time. But this time, to Iroh's shock and surprise, sparks of lightning could be seen on the tips of Zuko's fingers. It was faint, it was weak, it was nowhere near enough to be used. But he somehow did it. Zuko managed to generate lightning. Chapter 79, Madara's Politics. Today was not a good day, and if things were left unchecked, it wouldn't be a good week, month, year, or even over that. Last night, Ba Sing Se had the pleasure of receiving the pest called Madara Uchiha within its walls, and to Long Feng's dismay, they couldn't even kick him out lawfully considering that the pest owned a large plot of land in the upper ring of the city. Anywhere else and there wouldn't be an issue, but no. It had TOB in the upper ring. It was almost like the damned human-skinned monstrosity knew how to play this game well. Oh yes, the Daily did a long and detailed investigation about the ghost. Even to this day, Long Feng dreads picking up any reports piled up in the codenamed ghost files within the Daily headquarters. They knew that Madara wasn't normal, they knew that Madara was beyond powerful, they knew that Madara wasn't pro-Fire Nation, they knew where he lived, they knew his close circle, of course they knew. That's why after such a long, painstaking, and shrewd deal with the Fire Nation, both of them decided to turn a blind eye to the raid on the Uchiha resort. Were they expecting it to work? Of course not. They knew that Madara survived elite troops of firebenders when he was fucking 11 years old. Their goal? Keep him there, afraid to leave for the safety of his people and interrupt their plans, on both Fire Nation and Earth Kingdom sides. It's fine to be an anomaly as long as he didn't interact with the rest of the world. But now they knew something more dreadful than any other knowledge they had about the guy. They knew that Madara knew. And not only that. Madara left anyway. He is now in this very capital, and Long Feng wasn't fully prepared to deal with him. He first decided to send Ju Di. Madara can't possibly know that she is a Daily agent, right? It would be impossible considering that Ju Di training just finished a few days ago. He was hoping that Ju Di would take them on endless tours around the city, considering that Madara himself had never come here before, it felt like a suitable excuse to keep him busy. However. Nice palace. The pest was now right in front of him. And Ju Di could be seen behind him, sweating and worried, trying her best to keep the smile that she was conditioned to always have. She had one job, and it didn't even last for an hour. Not only that, the bastard didn't come alone. Kalia the waterbender from the Northern Water Tribe and Lei from Gaoling, a former Bifeng attendant, were with him. With narrowed eyes and a respectable stance, Long Feng decided to maintain pretenses. I am well aware that Ju Di already welcomed you to our beloved city, but I wish to once again welcome you to the Earth Kingdom's capital, Madara Uchiha. He did a slight bow but made sure that Madara understood that this wasn't a simple city, but the capital of the Earth Kingdom. Poor bastard believed that it would make a difference. He could see Madara nodding with his little posse, and nonchalantly looking around like this was some sort of zoo, or exhibition of sorts. This is the royal palace, show some respect. Of course, he wouldn't say such words, he didn't care if Madara started a war really, as long as the ground zero of said war wasn't at Ba Sing Se or even worse, the royal palace. We can deal with that later. First, we need to make sure he leaves the city as soon as possible. I came here to have a chat with your king, said the young man in front of him. I'm afraid that isn't possible. The Earth King is dealing with many issues lately and you can probably understand the reason why, considering the state of the world right now. Said Long Feng with a poker face. And I'm afraid that I can't take that as an answer, replied Madara with a polite smile that made Long Feng grind his teeth. Before the Daily leader could say a word, Madara walked past him straight towards the throne room. It seems that we will have to improvise. Long Feng could only sigh and make a subtle sign with his fingers. In a few seconds, the whole hall was filled with Daily agents surrounding the trio of tourists. Oh. Madara's smile grew, you sure you want to start this here? Long Feng's heart skipped a beat, he could swear that he felt happiness and satisfaction from Madara's words alone. I am the one that should be asking that with you barging into the royal palace, aren't you afraid of being labeled as a terrorist and attracting the resentment of the whole Earth Kingdom due to some impulsive choice? Asked Long Feng while turning towards Madara, doing his best to keep his poker face. What's the worst that can happen? Madara shrugged and smirked, worst case scenario I join the Fire Nation side after I escape, or if I manage to take over. I can use it as a gift and proof of allegiance. They both knew that it was bullshit, it was impossible for Madara to join any side of this war after the resort incident, but it didn't diminish the threat one bit, and made Long Feng gulp nervously. Remarkable that you don't even consider the possibility of getting caught and eliminated, said Long Feng doing his best with his facial expression to not look scared. Bwahahaha. A loud laugh echoed through the palace. That was a good one. Madara said after laughing, before turning to Lei who was shaking his head wryly, and Kalia who also laughed with him, yup, that was a good one. Silence remained for some long awkward seconds before Long Feng decided to use the one trump card that they had. Since subtlety doesn't work. I am well aware that you could escape the city with little to no issues, the leader of the Daily gave an accepting nod, but you are forgetting something very important. That seemed to pique Madara's interest. With a grin, Long Feng continued, even if we cannot stop you here, you still have your people working within your manor in the upper ring, not only that. You would bring disaster to your people back at your lands as consequence. Clapping his hands behind his back, with a victorious gaze towards Madara and his team. So, I recommend that you avoid such dreadful scenarios to your people, they are innocents after all. His action prompted all the Dai Li agents to assume their stances, ready to launch their stone gauntlets towards them. Madara just stared at him, and then at every single Dai Li agent around, as his eyes started glowing red. So, the intel was right, he has some weird eyes. He saw the intruder taking slow steps toward him but didn't mind. They had a checkmate in this situation. If they couldn't destroy Madara, they would destroy everything Madara has. Obediently get out of here, or we will make sure you regret threatening me with my people and my lands, huh? That's smart. For some reason, Madara didn't sound affected at all, and Long Feng's brain started running on overdrive trying to understand what Madara could possibly have to maintain his calm here. It's not a threat, we simply recognize, ugh. In less than a second he felt a strong grip around his neck, his feet dangling above the ground and his throat squeezed so hard that he couldn't even breathe. Looking around he saw all Dai Li agents standing like statues, with glazed eyes and empty facial expressions. Saliva started leaking from his lips and Madara kept staring at him. Then go ahead and do it. For a few seconds there was only the sound of chalking echoing through the palace halls. Long Feng kept trying to free himself, both of his hands gripping Madara's arm trying to push himself away, but the monster didn't even budge. You won't do it, you want to know why? Because if I get a whiff of a single worker or family member of mine, suffering any injury, no matter how minor, could even be a strand of hair missing for all I care, I will come back, and there won't be any words to be said anymore. Long Feng's eyes widened as his skin started to turn purple from the lack of air. So, if you value your little city and the little bit of power that you have, you should go out of your fucking way to keep them safe, because if there's anything out of place, I won't even care if you are the ones who did it or not, you will come to understand that I am way scarier when I have nothing more to lose, understood? Madara's voice grew lower pitched and somber, and Long Feng could feel the tips of Madara's hands starting to burn through the skin of his neck. Don't mistake me for the Avatar, I don't care about balance, and I don't care about your people. If I get a single hint, a whiff, or if I even have a bad dream about it happening, I will annihilate Ba Sing Se with all its inhabitants, erasing you all from the fucking map, nod if you understand. Long Feng could only nod and hope that the fingers burning through his flesh would not leave permanent damage at this point. Good, Madara concluded as he let go of the middle-aged man's neck. Cough cough cough. Long Feng fell on his knees doing his best to fill his lungs again, but couldn't stop from casting a furious gaze towards his assailant. You would, cough, destroy the lives of millions, cough, of innocent people. Yes, I would, Madara said without skipping a beat, and then continued, a single strand of hair from my people is worth more to me than all the lives in this world, so keep that in mind the next time you decide to act against me. Long Feng, concluded Madara as he signaled for his team to follow him towards the exit of the palace. Outraged Long Feng shouted, you can escape US, you may even outmatch US, but you are but one man. Even if we can't deal with you, old age will. His frustration, anger, and rage growing more and more as Madara didn't even stop on his steps. The Earth Kingdom has been here for thousands of years. You may be able to outmatch US but you can't outlast US. Long Feng gave final shot before his eyes started getting blurred. Madara stopped walking and turned his head to look over his shoulder, staring at Long Feng. You really think so? Say one more word and we shall see if you are right. Gulp. Long Feng gulped hard at that and remained in silence. That's what I thought. The last thing Long Feng saw before passing out was the silhouette of Madara, Kalia, and Lei walking through the palace doors.